their fucking efforts on the oil baron rescue plan.
Who are these people?
Who are these people? Hi, everybody. It's Indy. It is Indie News Now. It's Tuesday night, 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 Pacific. So we're live. Yes, we're actually live. We're here doing the thing. We missed last week. Sorry, I had to travel, but I'm back. And it's weird to be excited to do this because this is dystopian as hell. The stuff. I'm going to apologize in advance. This is really going to be a tough show. So if you're struggling right now, this might not be the best show for you, but we're going to cover Epstein stuff. We're going to cover what Israel's been up to and just how much our country is being bought off in order to serve the Israel narrative, which is not something that I'm in favor of whatsoever, obviously. And then we're going to talk about just all the shit that ICE has been up to. And I can't even cover all of it because I didn't even cover this week the buying of all the property that's been happening around the country. We've talked about it before, but now it's really starting to come to light just how much money they're spending to buy up properties and warehouses. And that's really frightening. And then we've got a quick lightning round of stuff, kind of potpourri, whatever, that didn't really fit any of those three categories. We'll whip through those and we'll shout out our friends that need help with their GoFundMes because we do that every week. And then we're going to get out of here and we'll be back next week. And I still haven't decided what to do on Thursday. If anybody has any ideas whether they'd rather see me do a tech tips or maybe a nobody wants to work anymore, I'd have to check with Himbo on that one. But those are the two options that I'm looking at for Thursday because I don't really have a one-on-one lined up. The other thing is I could call up my friend Pasta and see if he wanted to have a conversation on Thursday, and we could put that out Thursday night. So there's a couple options. I'm not really sure what I want to do, but welcome to this show. We are again going to talk about the Epstein stuff, and I didn't want to really talk about it, but I'm going to talk about it in the way that we talk about it, which is narrative control and what do we see, if anything, actually coming out of this, and why is this being let out now in the way that it is, and what do we see happening? So I, again, have a ton to get to. Before we do, support independent media because we need it more than ever. These amazing people have already supported INN, and this goes all the way back to the day that we started the network more than 4 years ago. A lot of them still continue to support it today, which, I'm so honored that they do, that everyone out there does. It's a daily grind, and we put a lot of heart and soul into these shows, and I appreciate every single dollar that everybody does put in to support the media they want to see. And we try to bring the stories that corporate media won't show you from a perspective that corporate media doesn't want to show you, which is the perspective of the people. So again, appreciate you supporting independent media. The best ways to do that are through Cash App using $ Indie News Network as the symbol. ko-fi.com/Indie News Network will pop something up on the screen while we're live and interrupt me and do a who are these people. So that's always fun. PayPal.me/Indie News Network will direct it right to our PayPal. Do it as friends and family so we don't get fees. Patreon.com/Indie News Network. You can subscribe monthly or annually, as well as at IndieMediaToday.com. We're live over there now. I saw a bunch of people jumping in live earlier on. I hope you're all here. Thank you for joining. And then INNNewsletter.com, where I am a member and co-founder of the Indie News Network. That's our weekly newsletter that also a bunch of other shows get put out as podcasts and the occasional article. Also, we are live. The show is called Indie News Now Live because we made a website called IndieNewsNow.com. Now, IndieNewsNow.com is a website that aggregates news, but it also has a watch live section where we co-stream anytime that the network is live into that website so that we can't ever fully be censored. All right. I had got, like I said, a ton of stuff to cover tonight. So let me start by, of course, it's an Instagram, so I need to refresh the thing, and let's go. Hopefully this works. And then I'll have to unmute it because Instagram is so special.
I'm on here with my fucking sick voice just to rant because I'm so tired of the pro-Palestine movement and people in it being labeled as divisive when we call into question someone like Lady Gaga or Ricky Martin or just anyone who's a Zionist being able to perform and still have a career and sort of just exist in public spaces and be worshipped. You're making it like, oh, you're just taking everything too seriously. It's genocide we're talking about. It's not like, oh, I didn't like their outfit one day. Or I don't like that one thing they said. Bitch, we're literally talking about, like, do they think Palestinians deserve to exist and be safe or not? We're talking about human life. This isn't just a difference of opinion. It's the same way your fucking MAGA uncle doesn't get to just have a different opinion if he thinks that we should make America white again. Like, no. Zionism is literally a form of white supremacy, and we shouldn't be allowing someone who is a Zionist to have a platform. And this is like basic shit. Do you remember when Mel Gibson went on that crazy anti-Semitic rant a million years ago, and society just canceled him because that was the right thing to do, because he was literally a psychopath, right? Like, everyone understood exactly what that was. So why is it that when it comes to Palestinian life, you can't see that for what that is? I understand that, like, a lot of these celebrities, like, they're not going on these, like, rants against Palestinian people, okay, but when you stand for a genocidal state, honestly, I don't really see what the fuck the difference is. It's not just, oh, they didn't know better. It's been 2.5 years of genocide. Everyone in 2026, if they don't see it by now, I don't know what to say. And, like, yes, if they realize, if they wake up, we will welcome them in, and we'll be mad, but we'll welcome them in. But it's like, what else do you need to see, right? If the people that you're worshiping aren't on the side of humanity at this point, I don't know what to tell you. But it's not us being divisive. It's them being fucked up. I'm honestly so...
Amen. So this is Laila Hagazi. If you don't know, you can follow her on Instagram. She's also on Facebook. I don't know if she's anywhere else. I'm guessing probably on Threads, but I won't use that platform because I can't really stand Zuckerberg. Although I've got quite a bit of Instagram to start the show. I try to move away from those, but you can't really avoid it. That's where all the content is, sadly. But I completely agree with her. And what she's talking about specifically is that there was a Super Bowl this past weekend. A guy by the name of Bad Bunny performed at the halftime show. MAGA melted down because he performed exclusively in Spanish. Most of white America was like, I don't know what the fuck this guy's saying. I guess he's good, but I don't feel like it's for me, so that's fine. But it's not for me. And then he brought Lady Gaga on stage. And like Descent in Bloom said, Lady Gaga has Zionist ties. She's literally just excused, genocide for 2.5 years. And then when Descent in Bloom Googled her, she found out that Lady Gaga's husband has ties to Peter Thiel. That's disappointing. Yeah, that's to say the least, for sure. And like Angel is saying, the handsome cynic, Angel does a show on INN on Friday afternoons at 7 Eastern, Angel in the afternoon. Most American normies are out of touch and like their favorite artist or their favorite actors, no matter who they or what they support. Absolutely true. They don't care. They just want to be entertained. All right. And also, he loved MAGA's meltdown over Bad Bunny. It was really funny when he is a citizen and there were people get this guy off the stage. Welcome, Eric Myers, paid subscriber. Thank you so much for your support. Really, really appreciate you, brother. So, yeah, it's been a crazy week. Again, I just wanted to again, Zionism everywhere. But remember that Bad Bunny himself would never be allowed to work the Super Bowl if he wasn't part of that system. Of course, he was going to have to give something, make some kind of concession, and allow them to have some influence in some way. And remember the Robert Kraft commercial about the blue square, and that it's crazy, really, the whole thing. And to get upset about any one portion of it, I think is a little silly, but I just thought that that was interesting. The fact that they would bring someone who was just, you know, when it was supposed to be an anti-colonialism type of theme, somebody who is openly supporting the colonialism and Zionism and genocide that's going on in Israel right now, or in Gaza, in Palestine, as much as that tweaks the Israelis that we say that. Now, Miss Rachel, we all know Miss Rachel. Miss Rachel went off on a 4-video rant that, goddamn, I mean, that woman is just something. And I didn't want to download them. I just brought them up, and hopefully these will work. Here we go. I got to refresh these because I don't know where they start. Here we go.
Bomb a child's home.
Oh, no.
Family members, bomb their schools, bomb their hospitals.
Why can't I hear this?
And then say they're just going to live in tents now.
They're just going to live in tents now that are cold and leaking, and babies are dying of hypothermia. You can't bomb all their schools and then just say that they live in tents now and don't get to have an education. You can't say that they have this or that disease or condition and they just don't get medical care and can't evacuate. You can't just kill 20,000 plus children. You can't create the largest cohort of child amputees in modern history and just leave them without their limbs in the leaking cold tents, without prosthetics. A home is a child's human right, and education is a child's human right. That's her first rant. The time of excuses and lies and dehumanization is over. Let's see if this one's any louder. No. Everyone knows deep within that hurting a child and keeping a child from the things they need is wrong. So the kids of Gaza need warm, safe shelter, and the people, medical care, food, and to rebuild. And the time of excuses and lies and dehumanization is over. Everyone knows deep within. Right. Okay, so that's the second one. Here's the third one. I met a girl, whose brother was scared. She assured him that it was just a sound, he was going to be okay. And then he was killed in front of her. And then her other brother was killed in front of her. And then she was horrifically burned. Why would anyone kill children ever? Kill children's family members. Take away their schools, take away their homes, take away their medical care, and have them living in cold, leaking tents. The fact that children are barefoot, freezing without limbs in these tents when the supplies exist miles away. Is unbelievably cruel, and it's child abuse. And here's the last one. Mr. Rogers said, how would I love for my son to be able to grow up in a world in which refuses to abuse its children? That's the world I want. I want a world that refuses to abuse its children, whether it's in Sudan, the Congo. It's 2026. We cannot have children be killed and be out of school and not have shelter. Those are such basic needs. Everyone is connected. Our kids will not meet their full potential until all kids have the opportunity to meet their full potential. It's just the way things work that we're all connected. And number one, it's the right thing to do for all kids to have these rights. Number two, we are all connected. She's the best of us, like the basics. But it takes somebody like Miss Rachel to actually have to come out and say this shit. Volume upper right. No, it's not the volume. It's just muted. And when I unmuted, there was like no sound. It was really low. So I just decided to read it for her. Thank goodness there's transcript along with that. But man, I'm going to link all these in the description afterwards. So by all means, please go and watch that. Subscribe to her Instagram. She often shares video conference calls that she has back and forth exchanges with Palestinian children and with children all over the world and that are impoverished and living in war zones. And she's incredible. You know, even if she makes the mistake of supporting Zoran, that's okay. Like, what are you going to do? Nobody's perfect, but man, look at how she fights for these kids right now and using her platform, being attacked on a daily basis by the Zionist lobby for it, being called pro-Hamas and a terrorist and everything else that they call her, for speaking out on behalf of these children, for saying that they should have a world where they're allowed to grow up in peace and warmth and some modicum of comfort. And I would say the same thing for all the kids right now that they're locking in these ICE detention facilities. Like Dilley, which I don't know if I have a thing, but we're going to probably talk about that later. So I'm sure everyone's aware here that the Olympics are going on. Maybe not, but the Winter Olympics are happening right now in Italy. And at the opening ceremony, the Israelis sent a delegation out. And I don't even, why they're allowed to perform is beyond me. And nobody really realizes, but understands. But they got booed incessantly by the entire crowd. And some of the coverage tried to drown it out. NBC or somebody is copyright claiming it anytime anybody shows it, which is why I won't show it. Here, the Associated Press also reporting that an Israeli bobsled pilot reporting that their training apartment was robbed Saturday with passports and valuable items stolen. Nora Barrows-Friedman, award-winning journalist for the Indie Media Award honoree Electronic Intifada, she says everyone hates them. They've already won gold in all categories of genocide, rape, theft, and torture, not to mention the slaughter of Palestinian athletes and the bombing of all sports arenas. Hopefully by next Olympics, there won't be an apartheid colony they can represent. And I can't agree with Nora more also on that one. Nora, I wrote an article late last year in September, published about why Israel should not exist at all as a state, and especially Greater Israel should not be allowed to exist. So I brought a couple articles from Israel Palestine News. One of them, this is written by Dr. Feroz Sidwa. Yes, I agree, Ghost Art, that her voice is much more annoying than mine. Oh, I don't think so. No, mine is much more annoying, but that's funny. No idea the Olympics were happening. See that? So Dr. Feroz Sidwa, we covered a couple of articles in the past on How Did We Miss That, where he is one of the doctors that was literally let in to operate on people in Gaza. So he has a firsthand account of what was going on in there, and his reports were horrifying and frightening and just what no human should have to endure, let alone spend weeks on end, basically every waking moment, repairing people who were destroyed by bombs and bullets of all ages, and then watching a lot of them die because they could not get the medical supplies or did not have the personnel or resources available to properly treat them. The gauze, the anesthetic. Remember, they're all working without anesthetic for more than 2 years. And the amount of trucks that are allowed in with supplies, even on a daily basis during this quote-unquote ceasefire, okay, which we know isn't a ceasefire, is a whole other story, and way, way lower than they had agreed to and that should be allowed. And that was mandated by this term in whatever the second stage that they had in after the post-ceasefire, whatever nonsense, that we knew they would never agree to in the first place. But Dr. Sidwa wrote an article about, in multiple parts, Truth About Gaza's Death Toll. This was part 3. What do we actually know? So I'm just going to go through parts of it where he examines the robust investigations of Israel's killing, okay, and challenges Americans to decide whether Israel should be allowed to exist, let alone use U.S. weapons and money to extinguish an entire people. That's genocide by definition. All right, now he wrote this the other about a week ago. We'll continue saying the bombs are ours, not yours, as former Yemeni President Ali Abdullah Saleh to General David Petraeus. To say that the Palestinian Ministry of Health in Gaza's list of dead since October 7, 2023 is an undercount is an understatement, to say the least. As he had examined in part 2 of the series, which you could read there, the most conservative reading of the 3 scientific studies of the death toll in Gaza shows that the Ministry of Health's data is at least a 34.7 to 41.8% undercount of violent deaths in the enclave. A perfectly sensible reading of these studies is that the Ministry of Health data death toll is a more than 67% undercount, which means that more than double the amount of people that they say were killed actually were. There's also a number of non-scientific but nevertheless robust investigations of the assault that are worth examining. But unlike the scientific studies, they can't help us quantify the level of killing. However, they provide many useful comparisons to other events. These comparisons reveal that the conflicts, quote unquote, most similar to the assault on Gaza are not wars at all, but the current slaughter in Sudan and genocides in Srebrenica and Rwanda. Okay? What do we mean? Air Wars, a British non-governmental research firm, investigates how air campaigns affect civilians in wartime. Through painstaking open source investigations, combing through news, social media, etc., Air Wars has created a public archive of civilian harm incidents and reports based on that information. They've studied 12 conflicts so far, including the current assault on Gaza. Air Wars' first investigation into the Gaza death toll, released in July of 2024, and remember, it's still going on, in February of 2026, examined the first 17 days of the attack. Just 17 days. In those 17 days, more allegations of civilian harm than in any month in its 10-year history of monitoring, including the U.S.-led campaign against ISIS, the NATO-led coalition in Libya, and the Russian bombardment of Syria. Yeah, even in the first 2.5 weeks of the assault, when the real-time Ministry of Health data collection was the most robust it could possibly be because they hadn't destroyed the entire infrastructure yet, they still found that only 75% of civilian deaths were being recorded. We knew that there were way more from minute one. Another investigation published in December of 24, that was, again, examined just the first 25 days of the assault. By almost every metric, the harm to civilians from the first month of the Israeli campaign in Gaza is incomparable with any 21st century air campaign. It is by far the most intense, destructive, and fatal conflict for civilians that Air Wars has ever documented. Again, in 10 years. I mean, just in those 10 days, between 5,100 and 6,600 civilians killed. The lesser of which is nearly 4 times the number of civilians killed in the most lethal month, which was March 2017 prior, where 1,470 civilians were killed by the U.S. coalition in Iraq. Oh, oops. Sorry. Yeah, we're the bad guys if you hadn't figured this out yet. The USA and Israel and the UK and all of the NATO supporting countries is who I'm talking about. Furthermore, this is known as a known undercount, as Air Wars' work is ongoing, with additional civilian deaths from that period still under analysis. Still, 2.5 years later, they're still trying to figure out exactly how many people were killed. Because in some cases, Israel literally just vaporized an entire family with weaponry that nobody had ever seen before. So Dr. Sid was saying that Air Wars generously had sent him the additional data they collected since then, totaling 696 incidents of civilian harm in the first 25 days of the assault. Again, they harmed everybody. They displaced everybody. The updated data, again, shows now between 6,311 and 8,100 people killed just in the month of October of 2023 after October 7th. 4.2 to 5.5 times as many civilians as were killed in the first 25 days of the attack on Gaza that had ever been documented. All right, and that's just one small portion of it. But remember that in these past 2 weeks that Israel has come out and admitted that, yeah, the Gaza Health Ministry, while we may not like them, yeah, it turns out their data, it's actually pretty accurate. So they're now even admitting that the Gaza Health Ministry was not overstating the number of people killed and injured. But gear up, because AIPAC is getting ready for election season. And they're already starting to make media buys. But here we've got, this is, again, just AIPAC. This is not Israel. This is not any other entity. This is one specific lobbying group. This is not J Street. This is not Zionists of America. This is not all of those other ZOA coalitions. And I talked about that, God, it was a year ago already with Gen X Girl 1994. We talked about all of the different splinter organizations that Zionists of America squirrel money into in order to be able to funnel money back into this system and control narrative. All right. So AIPAC gearing up for the midterms with $95 million war chest. All right. And this is a short article out of Haaretz. Now, this is something that I think a lot of people don't do, which is they don't look at what the Israeli papers are telling their own people. And I find it really fascinating to see what the message is that they're trying to send within Israel about how they're trying to impact America's elections. So, in this case, Haaretz is saying the pro-Israel group Super PAC has the most cash on hand since its establishment ahead of the 2026 midterms, and has already spent hundreds of thousands of dollars ahead of what was last week's New Jersey Democratic primary, which the candidate they wanted to win did not. It was an anti-AIPAC candidate, Latina woman, that ended up taking that seat. Or at least that took that primary, and they'll challenge the Republican in April, which everybody's basically saying that it's a foregone conclusion she's going to win. So AIPAC's United Democracy Project Super PAC reported on January 30th having more than $95 million cash on hand ahead of the 2026 midterm primary election cycle after raising more than $62 million in the latter half of 2025. That's disheartening. Where they're getting it from is a whole other question, because a super PAC is a political action committee that's allowed to raise and spend unlimited amounts of money to campaign independently, quote unquote, for candidates for federal office. It is the most cash on hand that the super PAC has had heading into an election cycle since its establishment ahead of the 2022 midterms. Remember that AIPAC never directly spent money on a candidate ever prior to 2020. And then all of a sudden, they just decided that they're going to take the brakes off and just go full force and spend all the money because they can. They're doing this through American citizens, through a legal method to do this. A lot of people want them to declare themselves a foreign entity, and then they would not be able to donate to political campaigns. All right, but this is, again, being done by Americans, set up by Americans in America with American money, American Zionist money. So I don't know what the answer is there. So according to federal filings, AIPAC itself contributed $30 million to the super PAC. Right? So a third of it is coming directly from AIPAC. 2 individual donors gave more than $1 million each. Republican mega donor Paul Singer. His contributions to the organization have drawn Democratic ire for several election cycles. He donated $2.5 million. He's also a guy that's involved right now in Venezuela because he was one of the few people that got access to their oil early on. Democratic mega donor Chaim Saban, he contributed $1 million. Okay. Saban recently made rare public remarks about the influence of pro-Israel mega donors on the U.S. political system while appearing alongside GOP donor Miriam Adelson at the Israel-American Council's annual conference. Quote, "Those who give more have more access. Those who give less have less access. It's simple math." And that's what this is all about for them, which is control and access and influence. And of course, Trump and his administration is all too perfectly happy to go along and allow that. But also, again, remember that this is a major Democratic Party donor, but that this is a uniparty. They don't care. It's either side. They're buying both sides of the horse race to guarantee a victory. The United Democracy Project AIPAC Super PAC has already spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on attack ads in a New Jersey Democratic primary scheduled for next Thursday, February 12th, or this coming Thursday. But I don't think it was this Thursday because it's already been conceded. Malinowski and all these people have already conceded to this Mejia, but they're targeting Tom Malinowski, who lost, and they did not get the candidate they wanted. Although AIPAC has said that the campaign is driven by Malinowski's critical stance on Israel, the ads make no mention of Israel, which is interesting. Instead, they portray him negatively to Democratic donors by accusing him of supporting Trump's anti-immigration efforts and that he cannot be trusted. Those are actually running in my area because I live in that district or near that district. Democrats have become increasingly irate over AIPAC's Republican-funded attack ads, influencing Democratic parties, okay, while with internal critics of the party's status quo approach often citing AIPAC's support as potentially disqualifying for candidates. You don't say! You mean supporting genocide is a deal breaker for some of the supporters of the Democratic Party? Could have fooled me. I mean, it guarantees that they're going to lose because they're always going to split their base. Liberal pro-Israel group J Street, President Jeremy Ben-Ami, recently decried AIPAC's 5-year pattern of deploying vast financial resources, primarily raised from Republican donors, to intimidate, punish, or defeat Democrats AIPAC deems insufficiently pro-Israel. That's basically everyone. They want everybody to be Richie Torres, which is gross. With tens of millions of dollars in the bank, the implicit threat to sitting members of Congress and candidates alike is hard to ignore. And again, this is coming from Haaretz. This is an Israeli paper that's reporting on this. All right, so that's the perspective that you're getting from Israel about how they see the 2026 election. Which doesn't really matter which side, because they're going to win no matter what, because they're buying both sides off. But just remember, again, that this was never and has never been a ceasefire. This is Dr. Intishar al-Rabai. She was one of 24 victims killed in Gaza 2 days ago, February 8th, 2026. 24 people, mostly civilians, including 7 children and a doctor. And that's the doctor. Why? Because Hamas. When was the last time there was anything that was fired back at Israel from within Gaza? Like outside of those walls? It's been a long time since I've heard of any of that happening. I'm going to keep going. We have, and this is a mess, Indie Media Award honoree Mondo Weiss reporting on the reopening of the Rafah crossing. So, handcuffs, interrogation, and humiliation. Palestinians describe the Israeli treatment at the Rafah crossing. So we know that Israel is not really happy with having to move to the next stage of their ceasefire because they never intended to honor it in the first place because they never ceased fire. The only thing they did was they made everybody else cease while they continued to fire. That's a Rafah al-Arir quote. May he rest in power. The first Palestinians returned to Gaza from Egypt through the Rafah crossing this week after being stuck outside Gaza for 2 years or more. They described grueling interrogations, intimidation, and of course, threats by Israeli soldiers at the crossing. From Tariq Hajjaj, who's one of the best over at Mondo Weiss. All right, here's a picture of some of the Palestinians coming from the Rafah crossing in a vehicle with a UN label at Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis in the southern Gaza Strip. Okay, this was 10 days ago, or 8 days ago, February 2nd. Shackled, interrogated, and humiliated. That is how Intisar El Akir, a Palestinian woman from Gaza, described her experience as one of a dozen people who returned back to Gaza from Egypt through the Rafah border crossing this week. And she might feel like she won the lottery because she got to go back, because she is one of those dozen, to go back into the most disgraced, horrible conditions. But it's her home, and that's where she wants to be. In a widely circulated video on social media, Al-Akir steps off a bus arriving from the Rafah crossing into Gaza, her outstretched hands showing signs of being handcuffed. She describes how she was harshly interrogated for 3 hours, how she was forced to identify her son among a group of people, and how Israeli investigators kept aggressively asking her about his whereabouts. I do not know where any of them are, she says, recounting that the interrogators kept yelling at her and telling her that she was a liar. As an elderly woman, she kept begging them to let her rest. They killed me while they were hitting me and tying the handcuffs tighter on my hands. They put fire inside me. They burned my heart. For close to 2 years, tens of thousands of Palestinians like Al-Akir have been trapped outside Gaza, waiting to return home after leaving the Strip during the genocide. That long-awaited opportunity finally came on February 2nd when the Rafah crossing with Egypt was opened. Israel had unilaterally shut down the border after attacking and taking control of it in May 2024, which, remember, Joe Biden had said was a red line, and then did nothing because he pooped his pants. Initial reports estimated, based on Israeli claims, that each day 50 people would be allowed by Israeli authorities to return to Gaza, while 150 people would be allowed to leave the Strip. That's not a big number for either. However, local Palestinian reports confirmed that during the past 4 days since the crossing opened, a total of 138 Palestinians and their companions left Gaza, while only 77 people were allowed back in. So they treated it as a maximum of 50 people, or they couldn't process them and interrogate them enough, and then decided that some of them would not be allowed likely, so they turned them away, would be my guess as to why Israel would make an excuse that they did not allow a full 50 each day and 150 to leave. Rutana Rakib, who accompanied her sick mother to Egypt for medical treatment in March of 2024, was also part of that first group of Palestinians to return back to Gaza this week. She recounted her return to Mondo Weiss, describing degrading treatment by Israeli soldiers at the Rafah crossing. Just because they can, just because they're monsters. According to Rutana, the process of returning to Gaza by registering with the Palestinian embassy in Egypt, where stranded Palestinians must submit their names for pre-approval. Those approved are then informed of their return date to Gaza. Rutana tells Mondo Weiss that on the first day that the crossing reopened, 4 buses departed from the Egyptian city of Al Arish toward Gaza. But when they got to the border, the Israelis only allowed 1 bus carrying 13 people through, ordering the other 3 buses to return to Al Arish. According to Rutana, 4 of the 13 people were almost not let through, allegedly due to the fact that they were carrying more than the permitted single bag per person to have their entire life belongings. Fuck Israel. After completing procedures on the Egyptian side, which Rutana described as extremely humane, the travelers dealt with Palestinian staff at the crossing who also treated them well. They were then informed that after passing the Palestinian checkpoint, the Israeli army would take control until they entered Gaza. From that point on, she said, her suffering began, because that's what Israel does. We reached the Israeli point without the Red Crescent, no humanitarian organizations, no escorts, only the bus driver and the passengers. An Israeli military jeep drove in front of the bus, and another followed behind. Upon arrival, Israeli soldiers did not directly take them into custody. Instead, Palestinian personnel wearing uniforms, labeled Counter-Terrorism Unit, the same name used by the Israeli-backed gangs in Rafah, by the way, received them, searched them physically one by one, then handed them over to the Israeli army. So effectively, they used cutouts to first do the initial inspection of the Palestinian people that were returning to make sure that they weren't armed in any way, shape, or form and weren't going to attack anyone. So they sent Palestinians human shields in there. Huh. I thought Israelis were against human shields. Oh, right. No, they're not at all. At the Israeli security check, soldiers handcuffed the passengers, blindfolded them, and led them to interrogation rooms. Yeah, that's standard practice in a democracy, in a democratic country. Sure. What are you doing in Gaza? Why did you return? The soldiers repeatedly asked the passengers. She said the questions were focused on the reasons for leaving and coming back, along with politically charged questions, which interrogators insisted on asking over and over again. Passengers were allegedly given limited time to answer, and if their answers didn't satisfy the soldiers, they were threatened with detention, prolonged handcuffing, imprisonment, and transfer to Israeli death camps that they call prisons. If you don't answer within the given time, we will arrest you and you will never see your children again. You will never enter Gaza. Gaza belongs to us now, they told her. One interrogator told her, what if we bring your children from Gaza right now? You take them and leave Gaza forever and never return. She says she understood this as an attempt to force Palestinians off their land. They will never leave. They don't care who comes back or who leaves. They want all of Gaza. They want the land without its people, as I had been reporting for 2 years plus now. One interrogator repeatedly told her, even if it takes 30 years, we will take all of Gaza. I mean, they haven't suffered enough, apparently, according to Israelis, which is disgraceful. 2 years of destroying these people's lives. And you're just going to take everything and then expel them to Somaliland. That's the plan, by the way. She describes being taken from one place to another, hands painfully bound, eyes repeatedly covered and uncovered, guns pointed at their heads as they were asked questions to which they had no answers. That sounds like the people off the Freedom Flotilla, doesn't it? Quote, they used the worst methods of interrogation and humiliation. Their main goal was to push us to leave Gaza again, but they failed. Speaking about the crossing itself, Rutana says Rafah no longer looks like the border terminal it once was. It's just a fenced corridor with high barriers on both sides. The rest of the crossing is completely burned out. We see that. We saw that they bombed the Rafah crossing in 2024. She adds that returnees pass through 3 different Israeli gates where facial scans are conducted before being taken for interrogation. I mean, this is the Gestapo state right here. This is what ICE is actually trying to start implementing here. You're seeing an advanced preview of what is coming here over there. So don't act like this is just happening over there. In another testimony, Huda Abu Abed, an elderly woman, describes a similar experience. What a surprise. She says all returnees went through nearly identical conditions. While on the bus, she saw Israeli military jeeps driving behind them and ahead of them. When she asked the bus driver where they were going, he replied saying, "To the unknown." Huda says she believed that the journey was over after being searched on both Egyptian and Palestinian sides. Ha ha ha. Little did she know, she expected them to return directly to her family in Gaza. Instead, passengers were taken off the bus, divided into small groups. Her name was called. Soldiers pointed at her saying, "Bring that old woman." Okay, Palestinian man from the counterterrorism unit took her by the hand and handed her over to the soldiers. She said, "I'm an elderly sick woman. Is there no humanity, no dignity in taking me by the hand and delivering me to armed soldiers?" She said she has severe vision loss and should have been treated with care, not dragged into the interrogation rooms, handcuffed and blindfolded. And again, same questions. Why are you returning to Gaza? What do you have there? Who told you to return? The questions were all familiar. She explained that she was returning with her daughter, who had left her children behind in Gaza in order to accompany her mother for treatment in Egypt, and wanted to reunite with her children, assuming that her children were still alive to look for them. After more than 2 hours of interrogation, soldiers told her to deliver a message that the people of Gaza should pack up their belongings and leave at the first opportunity. Again, they're telling the people of Gaza that they want to steal their land, that they want to steal the resources underneath it, that they want them to leave. Huda says that under that pressure, she began to panic and started screaming for her daughter, who helps her walk due to her poor eyesight. Soldiers told her that her daughter was on the bus, but later she realized they were lying. Her daughter was also being interrogated. After some time, they were finally released and taken back to the bus before finally being let through to Gaza, traumatized and frightened for their lives, which is the whole point of this interrogation. We will not leave. This became the defining message that Palestinians returning to Gaza insisted on repeating, no matter how destroyed or scarred by war it is. Huda told Mondo Weiss that all Palestinians must stay on their land, urging those who left Gaza to return as soon as possible. We will not leave our country. Rutana explains that many left Gaza alone, not with their families, because only limited people were allowed to leave to accompany sick relatives. She herself left with her mother, but left behind her husband and children living in displacement camps in Gaza. She said, "The main reason I returned is my family. This is my country. I missed my family deeply, and I wanted to reunite with my children, whom I hadn't seen for more than a year, almost 2. Most of the testimonies collected from Palestinians returning from Egypt say the same. The overwhelming reason was family. Despite knowing that their homes had been destroyed, that their relatives were displaced, that many were now living in worn tents, they returned without hesitation. Quote, "When I left Gaza, my family was still living in our home in Khan Yunis. When I returned, I found that the house had been bombed while my family was inside. My husband was seriously injured and is now unable to move. They're living in a tent instead of a home. I didn't even know what life in a tent meant until I lived it myself." Despite everything, she insists on her decision. "Even if I were given the choice again, I would return to Gaza. Life in Egypt, despite the warmth and care shown to Palestinians, is exile. Gaza is our homeland. Our family is there. We do not want to be separated from them. I didn't see my children for an entire year. That would break me. Every day I was torn apart as I followed the news, watching the bombing and destruction, asking myself, who's holding my children? Who's comforting them when they're afraid? Now I've returned to them. I'll stay with them. I will not leave with them, and I will not leave Gaza. She echoed the sentiment. Huda, the elderly blind woman, echoed the sentiment, recalling suffering a severe health crisis in Egypt that put her in intensive care. She says she felt close to death, and at that moment, she had only one wish: to return to Gaza and die there. There is nothing that compares to being in your homeland, she says. Nothing, no matter how comfortable, stable, or safe exile may be. Home is more beautiful than anything else. We were born there. Everything here is blessed. We will not leave our country. We will do everything we can to return to it, to live in it, to die in it, and to be buried in its earth. Man. I told you it was going to be dark, but at the same time, it's also inspirational how hard they are fighting to still go back to what has been completely leveled and destroyed. Because fuck Israel. So again, that is Mondo Weiss. Heartbreaking, but I think important. But remember that Israel is not just invading and destroying Gaza. They are also stealing Lebanon. Bombing Lebanon. So this is, I believe, Jason Ditz from antiwar.com, another Indie Media Award honoree. Rate of Israeli strikes on Lebanon at the highest level since the ceasefire. Multiple attacks reported today against southern, eastern Lebanon. All right, that was 5 days ago. Israel's invaded Lebanon, in late 2024, culminating in a ceasefire that was reached in November of that year. It was never much of a ceasefire, again, with Israel consistently launching attacks on Lebanese territory ever since. Have the Lebanese fired on Israel? Anybody in the chat, can anybody tell me? Has there been any Lebanese people firing on Israel, to your knowledge? Last I heard, the answer is no. With the escalations, though, it's, again, even less of a ceasefire than ever, whatever that means. Strikes are happening on a virtually daily basis, and in January, at least 50 distinct air raids were reported. Ceasefire, right, Israel? Making that month the highest since the ceasefire went into effect. Hey, guys, a ceasefire does not include distinct air raids. This escalation does not seem to be over, because the Greater Israel Project has not been achieved by Israel. Today, multiple Israeli attacks were reported against various sites in southern and eastern Lebanon. The mountains around Hermel are in particular, being hit heavily, though exactly what's being targeted is unclear, beyond Israel generally saying it's attacking Hezbollah infrastructure, quote unquote, which means that they just want to destroy an area, mostly civilian. While it's still early in February, the pace of strikes certainly shows no signs of slowing down. And if anything, the escalation is continuing apace. It is only that the month has fewer days that it's liable to stop February from setting a new high mark for strikes. Today's strikes, this was again 5 days ago, so this was Friday or Thursday, included 2 air raids against Mahmoudiyya, one against the Hasbaya district, and also the strikes in the mountains near Hermel. Given the 50 raids per month high, today is well above the usual pace, in keeping with Israel's constant threats for further escalation. Because who's stopping them? The IDF statements, I don't even know why you publish them because they're absolute bunk, claimed that the various strikes hit underground Hezbollah weapons storage. Trust me, bro. And claimed to have seen secondary explosives, which proved that weapons were there. They offered, as usual, no evidence that any of the sites contained weapons. Thank you for at least including that. I wouldn't even include the statement. I would just say that the IDF offered no evidence that any sites contained weapons that they claimed were there. Finally, in our Fuck Israel segment, a little bit of good news. All right, we talked about the Elbit protesters in London that had tried to stop the defense contractor from continuing providing the UK and Israel with weaponry to assault Gaza. So they were brought up on trial. Their members had actually gone through a hunger strike. But the Palestine Action protesters were found not guilty of burglarizing Elbit systems, where the campaigners claim a huge blow to government after a landmark prosecution of Direct Action Group fails. Now, this does not mean that they're no longer proscribed as a terrorist group. Remember, Palestine Action disbanded as an organization because they were proscribed as a terrorist group by the UK government. And to say that you support Palestine Action was then deemed to be supporting terrorism, even though the group no longer exists, which is insane. So, 5 out of the 6 defendants were granted bail late Wednesday. A 6th defendant, Sam Corner, was not granted bail. The defendants had to apply for bail because the prosecution will seek a retrial on charges where the jury were unable to reach a verdict, which is cruel. So here's what the article says. 6 Palestine Action protests. Let's listen to this. Can we play it? No, maybe not. 6 Palestine Action protesters have been found not guilty of aggravated burglary at an Elbit weapons site near Bristol, UK. Zoe Rogers, Fatima Zainab Rajwani, Charlotte Hand, Samuel Corner, Leona Cameo, and Jordan Devlin were also not convicted of any other charges by a jury at Woolwich Crown Court on Wednesday. The group were on trial for a break-in at an Israeli-owned arms factory on August 6th of 2024 at the height of the genocide in Gaza. I don't know what that means because the genocide is continuing to happen. I guess the killings were at their height. Keir Starmer's Labour government only placed partial restrictions on arms exports to Israel the following month. The activists spent 18 months on remand before their trial began in November of 2025. Jurors did not convict them of any charges, despite the judge trying to limit the defenses available to the activists. The jury could not reach verdicts on some charges, opening the door for the prosecution to seek a possible retrial and forcing the defense to apply for bail, which is exactly what ended up happening. A spokesman for Defend Our Juries said that the not guilty verdicts for the aggravated burglary charges were a, quote, huge blow to government ministers who've tried to portray Palestine Action as a violent group to justify banning it under badly drafted terrorism legislation. Despite government efforts to prejudice this trial, citing the allegations of violence to justify treating Palestine Action as terrorists, which they never were, as if they were already proven, the jury, which heard the evidence, has refused to find the defendants guilty of anything, not even criminal damage. It shows how out of step this government is with public opinion, which is revulsed by the government and Elbit's complicity in genocide. Around 40 friends and family of the defendants were gathered outside the Woolwich Crown Court, hugging and crying. Inside, bail hearings were ongoing for the 6, with rulings expected before 3 p.m. Again, 5 of the 6 were granted bail. Friends said that they hoped they would be coming out today. Moved to a patch of grass outside the court. Several in the crowd shared a meal on paper plates and greeted an increasing number of supporters who arrived by public transport. A truck carrying prisoners passed by with an audible banging sound from inside. The crowd, started to cheer. One drummed. They're just excited. Okay, so a little bit of good news. A tiny little bit of good news. One of them still didn't even get bail. So remember, they can never actually, give us anything. They never can. You know, Jesse Jett wrote a piece that he's only played so far, recorded on American Tradition so far. It's going to be on his next album. It's called The Win. And is that all we get before we go? And is this all we ever get? You know, of course they're going to always add strings to it. Of course you're never going to get it exactly the way you expected it, the way you wanted it. Of course there's going to be somebody on the other side pushing back. And again, this is another Indie Media Award honoree. We should support independent media from Declassified UK. Outstanding outlet. IndieMediaAwards.substack.com. You can find links to all these different incredible places like antiwar.com and mondoweiss.com. Okay. That's why I built that. All right. That's our Fuck Israel portion. We got through it and it was an hour. Oh my goodness. All right. We still have a bunch to get through. Hi, everybody. Yeah. All right. Fuck Israel and welcome to Indie News Now Live. I have not been looking at the chat. I apologize for that. Talking Wombat, welcome. Welcome to everybody over on Substack. Golden Monarch, I see you here, friend. I see Descent in Bloom, Cowboy Kitty. I see a lot of friends and family out in the chat. Love you all. Old Man Barker. Hi, everyone. Lauren over on Substack. Hi, how are you? Hope you're still watching. Okay. Go start saying spraying the agricultural land with glyphosate in Lebanon. That's absolutely another thing that they're doing for sure. I don't know if anybody answered me about, is Lebanon fighting back at all? Are they attacking Israel or Israel's just claiming, trust me, bro, Hamas, Hezbollah dropping bombs, and just like they don't provide receipts anywhere. Okay. Denver Attaway, welcome, brother. Israel is expanding infrastructure internally as well. Massive port construction, rail, tunnels, public transit, electrical infrastructure in lockstep with Belt and Road. And you had suggested this in November of 2025 over on Rumble. Yep, that's right. That is still happening for sure. And that was CDR News that you sent me a link to over there. So check that out. Elbit is IDF. Absolutely. All right. Yeah, Cowboy Kitty, we're going to talk later on about Natalia. Thank you, man. Love you. Good to see you here. Dina, how are you? Mash the like. Diana, thank you so much for all your support. Amazing comments. By the way, we've got videos all week long over on INN on YouTube. So if you do see a video over there, drop a comment as well as a like. YouTube is really elevating the value of comments. So as you comment more on the existing videos, not just chatting during the premieres, but leaving a comment permanently actually does really help. So thank you for that. All right. If you know, you know, I do know. All right. And yes, there was a long fuck Israel. By the way, I have some special news. If you're watching on YouTube, you can actually, but please don't leave a super chat for the first time in more than 2 years. We got remonetized this week. Holy crap. YouTube finally decided that we were let out of the penalty box and we can get super chats and super stickers. And we're going to set up, I don't know if we're going to set up channel memberships, but remember, 30% any money you give there goes to them, and we have to collect $50 before we get it. So if you're going to support independent media, and please do, these are the ways that we prefer that you do it. Cash App, $, Indie News Network. co-fi.com/Indie News Network. Takes a very small fee. If you go over to paypal.me/Indie News Network, there's no fee if you do it as friends and family. If you go to patreon.com/Indie News Network, you can subscribe monthly or annually. I think you could start as low as $3 a month. Then we've got IndieNewsNow.com. That's a website I built that aggregates news from across independent media, including all the INN content, but from a lot of other different places. And then you can get merch there. You can stream live. You can watch the live streams there. You can also now look at posts by day. I added a content calendar there. So that's really cool. And then over at Substack, if you're over on Substack, INNnewsletter.com and IndieMediaToday.com, you can again subscribe annually or monthly over there. Thank you so much for everyone that does. Really appreciate everybody who does that. All right. We're going to get to some of this ridiculous Epstein stuff. And I just want to kind of share what I'm seeing from my perspective here of all of this. There's so much out there that people could spend hours-long shows going through all of this and how it's all interconnected. And I highly recommend following Seven Seas, and I highly recommend following The Last American Vagabond and watching AM Wake Up and reading One Nation Under Blackmail by Whitney Webb as kind of a primer to where we are now and where this is going to go and why. All right. But I first wanted to start out by having a little bit of fun. This is incredibly serious and dark and deep stuff, of course, horrifying and state control and manipulation and honeypot stuff. But at the same time, it also proves a lot of people were right the entire time. So, conspiracy theorists.
So,
I mean, I nailed it.
I'm honest, I'm as shocked as you. Some of those were a little out there, and every single one was true. I'm honestly as shocked as you guys are.
I thought I was making some shit up back there.
I mean, I want to say I told you so, but I really just wish none of this was real at this point. I mean, it was fun when it was maybe not real, and now it's
all very real.
And once again, it's every single conspiracy theory is correct now. I'm just terrified. I mean, on top of all that stuff, I'm pretty sure they just confirmed aliens are real
For real this time.
So I don't know what they expect us to do with our lives. I mean, the Wayfair furniture thing was real.
That was such a long shot. Oh my god.
I mean, the whole point of these conspiracies is that when they come to light, people get to put in jail.
That's just not happening. So, like, the fun has been taken out of this completely.
I mean, I don't know what we do from here in terms of conspiracies. I mean, I want to make up new ones, but God forbid those become real. I feel like I'm
Wishing things into existence at this point.
I mean, the pizza thing?
The fucking pizza thing?
And also, it's not as important, but Jeffrey Epstein did make microtransactions. He did everything bad. I knew it, but I wish I didn't. So,
I mean, that's how we're going to start this segment, with a little bit of comedy, believe it or not. Shout out to Big Tug, 2 G's, Big 2 G's, Tug, 2 G's. That was funny. Also frightening, but holy crap. Yep. Conspiracy theorists still completely undefeated when it comes to all of this. Yep. Denver Attaway. The Epstein list continues to be the greatest red herring ever because, one, there is merit to the claims, and two, the operational blackmail material that is that matters is probably why we get this limited burn. Agreed. I mean, holy crap. We're going to cover some of this right now. I'm also going to lean on a couple of friends and Indie Media Award honorees here. The Dissident, who is a co-founder of INN, he's one of the 16 people I reached out to when I was first looking to start this network. Say, hey, I really like your content. I think we're all kind of incomplete almost. You published some great stuff. He was just getting started. You want to kind of pool our resources together? And he was down for that. And then took a break as he was finishing school, and then went full time and launched after really Julian Assange was let out of Belmarsh. And ever since then, he's been publishing now 7 to 10 articles a week. So support him over at the 307.substack.com. Big fan of the Dissident. And I've done a couple of one-on-ones with him. He was actually one of the first people I did a one-on-one with. after I started doing them again in August or September of 2024. He wrote an article here, which is mega Captain Obvious. Epstein files give more evidence that Jeffrey Epstein was a Mossad agent, which of course he was, which we've known all along. And again, what we're finding out here is nothing that wasn't already known and talked about by Whitney Webb in One Nation Under Blackmail and on Slow News Day 4 or 5 years ago. But now we're seeing the actual receipts and the emails and the documents in the files that the FBI had. It's really funny that he uses this AI photograph, and we know it's AI because the arm disappears here, and that this has already been debunked as AI. But what the dissident says is that Jeffrey Epstein's Israel connections have been well documented by CIA-friendly drop site news, allegedly, through leaked emails of former Israeli, through leaked emails of Ehud Barak, who was a close associate of Epstein and often used him as a back channel to the States, for example, to Russia during the Syrian war. The newly released files from the Department of Justice adds further evidence of Epstein's Israel connections and even raises the possibility that he was an agent of the Mossad, Israel's intelligence service, trained under Ehud Barak. And of course, because Netanyahu is denying it stringently, you know it's absolutely a fact. This possibility is best underscored in an FBI document released in the Epstein files, which quoted a confidential human source who claimed that Epstein was an agent of the Mossad. The CHS, again, confidential human source, trust me, bro, was apparently connected to Epstein's former lawyer, Alan Dershowitz, Dershie Squirts, with the document noting CHS learned that Dershie Squirts influenced many students from wealthy families. For example, Josh Kushner and Jared Kushner, we know them, were both his students. Dershowitz told CHS that if he were young again, he'd be holding a stun gun as an Israeli intelligence asset. That human asset, that source believed that Dershie Squirts was co-opted by Mossad and subscribed to their mission. CHS still continues to communicate occasionally for Dershowitz. So the person who is allegedly blowing the whistle here, the confidential source, says he's still connected with Dershowitz at the time. It was through this connection to Dershowitz that the human source claimed to have learned that Epstein was a Mossad agent. The FBI document wrote, quote, Jeffrey Epstein was represented by Dershowitz. The source remembered that Dershowitz told Alex Acosta, who remember was the U.S. Attorney of the Southern District of Florida at the time, this is 2008, that Epstein belonged to both the U.S. and allied, quote-unquote, intelligence services. That human source shared phone calls between Dershowitz and Epstein, during which he or she took notes, and after these calls, Mossad would then call Dershowitz to debrief. Epstein was close to the former Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Barak, and trained as a spy under him. The document also added that that source became convinced that Epstein was a co-opted Mossad agent. The source also alleged that through information apparently obtained from calls between Dershowitz and Epstein that, quote, Trump had been compromised by Israel and Kushner is the real brains behind his organization and his presidency, which doesn't surprise me at all. After the way that he bungled the Middle East during the first term, how would he be handed the reins again to be an envoy to the Middle East and to handle the reconstruction in Gaza? Because he's going to wildly profit. In another strange email exchange between Epstein and Ehud Barak in 2018, Epstein asked Barak to, quote, make clear that I don't work for Mossad, next to a smiley face. All right. So we've got a lot of stuff in this article, a lot of smoke. A lot of smoke. I suspect Robert, Ghislaine, and Jeffrey were all Mossad agents trying to blackmail leaders in the political and financial world. That's another another source. Then you've got Cy Hirsch that also talks about Robert Maxwell, right? Because Maxwell informing the Mossad, Hirsch wrote, the lonely Mordechai Vanunu was enticed by a Mossad agent named Cindy Hanin Bentov, which was a pseudonym, to leave for Rome a few days before publication of the story. Once in Rome, Vanunu has told family members he was taken by taxi to an apartment where he was drugged and returned to Israel by ship to stand trial. He was sentenced in March 1988 to 18 years in maximum security prison. So that's a whole story. All right. So the dissident ends up by saying that while more information needs to be revealed about Epstein's Mossad connections, the newly released files certainly add to a growing body of evidence that he was undoubtedly closely connected to Israel and possibly even an asset of its intelligence. And the reason why he used this photo is because it shows him in an IDF t-shirt, sweatshirt. We already knew that he wore an IDF sweatshirt. So when it comes to documenting the ridiculous, I rely on Indie Media Award honoree Caitlin Johnstone. So Caitlin and her husband Tim wrote this silly, accurate, and perfect piece called "Please Understand That Nothing Will Be Done About the Epstein Files." And that's the reason why I wanted to bring all of this, is to say that while it is interesting and fascinating to look at all of this, nobody is going to prison. No consequences will actually be had, with the exception of public cancelings of certain people that end up mentioned in certain places. Maybe people like Noam Chomsky that are now getting dragged through the mud. Deservedly so. Sorry, Aaron Mate. That's pathetic. Moon of Alabama fell on a sword today for a guy that wouldn't give a fuck about them, wouldn't piss on fire to put them out. I don't get any of this. Why is everybody rushing to defend this clown who clearly was friends with Jeffrey Epstein from the emails? Makes no sense to me. Anyway, let's listen to Caitlin and Tim.
Please understand that nothing will be done about the Epstein files. I need you to understand that nothing is going to be done about anything in the Epstein files. Nothing. The people in the documents will suffer no consequences. The institutions responsible for the abuses you've learned about will not change anything about how they operate. Your government will change absolutely nothing about its policies and behavior. Nothing will be done if you vote in the other political party. Nothing will be done if you vote in new politicians. Nothing will be done if you write letters to your senators and representatives. Nothing will be done if you hold protests outside government buildings. No meaningful laws will be passed. No prosecutions of any meaningful consequence will occur. Don't believe me? Just watch and pay attention. The power structure which birthed the Epstein abuses is not going to do anything about the Epstein abuses. The only thing that might possibly change is that some people may become radicalized against that power structure. That's the only real benefit that might come out of these Epstein releases the public has been demanding for years. That a few more eyes might get opened to how creepy and evil the people in charge of their society actually are. How creepy and evil capitalism and the Western Empire are. How creepy and evil Israel and Zionism are. That the collective might become a bit more aware that we live in a dystopia which elevates the very worst among us to positions of leadership and control. That's it. That's the only positive change that might come out of all of this. Our rulers won't do anything to help right the wrongs, but the people might become a bit more ready and willing to overthrow our rulers. That's the only way health and humanity is going to win this one. By waking up to reality one pair of eyelids at a time and realizing that the reason everything is fucked is because we live under a fucked up system which elevates fucked up people, and we're not going to have a healthy world until we abolish the fucked up system that put the fucked up people into power. The Epstein releases won't change the abusiveness of the system, but they might nudge people toward dismantling that system.
Ever hopeful. Caitlin Johnstone. Love her to death. Supporter over. Oh, this also, and I can't play this. This is Bo Burnham. That's How the World Works. That's also in here, and it's incredible. And she said, I can't get this out of my head. It is outstanding, but I will get DMCA'd and we'll get a takedown request for that. So, but yeah, support Caitlin. I'm a monthly subscriber over at her PayPal. For I think it's $6 a month, something like that. But she's great. I mean, she's just spot on as usual. So please understand that nothing will be done. However, Ricky, another Indie Media Award honoree over at Council of State Media and the Dystopian Times, the Epstein files contain admissions of murder and other serious crimes. So why no arrests? And it's not the statute of limitations. My answer is that because a lot of the crimes that are documented did not take place on American soil, but took place on Little St. James, which is not American soil and not prosecutable. But I love Ricky, and I love what he says here. He says the DOJ has indicated that there will likely be no further arrests related to the Epstein files. This is bizarre, considering that among these 6 million files are admissions of murder and other serious crimes. Not only are we not seeing arrests, but the DOJ's been redacting names. And it seems they could be protecting the reputations of pedophiles and murderers. Extraordinary. Let's take a look at the evidence. In the following email, someone wrote, quote, I never thought I would be able to kill someone in my life. I was wrong, unquote. Wow. Why was this person's name redacted? Why weren't they arrested? Are confessions not sufficient evidence to make arrests now? Even if you can't prove wrongdoing, we should know who wrote this. Let's say it was one of Epstein's exes, hinted at by the kissing comment. They'll certainly know things. What if it's a powerful person, such as a CEO or a politician? It's in the public interest to know what this person talks about. I understand that the DOJ is being asked to explain redactions. This is a clear example of where we need an explanation, and there are many others. Here's someone called Nadia, who appears to be talking in code about human trafficking, allegedly. Nadia is almost certainly Nadia Marcinkova, a Slovakian-born model who was one of Epstein's longest-term associates. She's reportedly been missing since 2024. How convenient. She became involved with Epstein in 2000 or 2001 when she was just a teenager. Several of Epstein's victims have alleged she was a recruiter and participated in abuse against them. She says, I ordered sweet young coconuts from Thailand for you, and they just arrived. Very yummy. I was going to ship them to you in Paris, but I hear you're coming back, so I'll send them to 71st with Sarah. Just so you don't have to drink juices from old hairy things. Now, if you've been looking at the deciphering of these coded messages, Ricky indicates clearly young coconuts from Thailand means young females. The coconut metaphor was used in other Epstein emails. The email took place in 2011, not long after Epstein had been released from prison. Nadia was one of the people who was protected by Epstein's non-prosecution agreement. Presumably, that doesn't apply if she committed crimes after his jail term, no? The question now is, did Nadia go into hiding? Or was the coconut trafficker killed? The Epstein files contain many examples of Epstein talking in pedo code. For example, pizza likely means girls. And there are tons of weird emails mentioning pizza, coconuts, and other food items. Hot dogs, for example. Remember that the DOJ is not supposed to be redacting for political sensitivity or to protect reputations. So why was this name redacted? And what does "no one can understand that" mean? Somebody sent him an article, an attachment, Veru Equity Research, Brookline.pdf. This is better than a Chinese cookie. See attached. Let's go for pizza and grape soda again. No one else can understand. Good to know. What does that mean? No one else can understand? You could say such an email doesn't prove anything, and you'd be right. But when the head of a pedophile ring is apparently talking in code, you should arrest everyone they're talking in code to. This is basic stuff. If the pizza code isn't convincing you, perhaps this one will. Clearly, Epstein is not talking about shrimp here. Shrimp, by the way, is a metaphor for girls, as is white sharks. So he sends this to somebody named Olivier Colombe. No, some are like shrimp. You throw away the head and keep the body. As long as you don't have any hammerhead ones, I like white sharks. As to a Russian, I guess I might refer to them as white sharks. The king of Saudi Arabia has a few white sharks at his Jeddah palace. I totally prefer yours. Sure, I would enjoy the view. These are disgusting. On my island in the Caribbean, with an aquarium full of girls. Not white sharks, not shrimp, but here he starts, girls. Oliver Colombe is making no secret that he was enjoying Epstein's girls. Epstein's throw away the head comment has been interpreted as decapitation, although it could mean something like, we're not interested in their personalities, only using them as sex objects. Either way, the comment's disgusting, if not criminal. Oliver Colombe is a French businessman and former high-level diplomat under Nicolas Sarkozy. He left the diplomat role 1 year before this email exchange and was working for Edmund de Rothschild at the time. Colombe facilitated meetings between Epstein and political and financial figures in France. He's mentioned more than 2,000 times in the Epstein files. The next disturbing exchange shows Italian entrepreneur Tancredi Salvatore Marchiolo casually talking about torture. Do you want me to do her or just torture her? Marchiolo is a hedge fund executive and partner at Bremner Capital LLP. While he doesn't say that he committed a crime, he was considering one, so why hasn't he been arrested? Surely we need to know if he raped or tortured someone. This highly disturbing exchange from Valentine's Day 2019 talks of a kid getting a bikini wax, being introduced to Pornhub, and sent to, quote-unquote, the house. It looks like the kid was a Valentine's gift for Epstein. The description makes her sound young. Frederick, in quotes, appears to be celebrity stylist Frederick Fekkai, a known associate of Epstein's, who was apparently preparing girls for him. The, quote, iPad portfolio likely refers to pictures of girls for Epstein to check out. Once again, the name of the sender is redacted. Is this not clear evidence of pedophilia? The kid couldn't have done bikini wax because hair are too short. Next time, doing hers and Elena's nails, kid will come straight to the house from Frederick with iPad portfolio. Done with Pornhub introduction. I don't know what this means. Kid is taking placement next week. I gave her all the information, but again, they're redacting all of this. This horrifying exchange between Epstein's ex, Eva Anderson Dublin, inviting him to her house, explaining her 15-year-old daughter will have 5 friends over. This was in 2010, after Epstein had served his jail sentence for sex offenses against a minor. So it's hard to see an innocent explanation here. Okay, August 2010. I'm at the ranch. Eva Dubin. Come and visit next week. Selena will have 5 friends over. Why would he be invited to hang out with her teenage daughter and her 5 friends? Eva Anderson Dubin is a former Miss Sweden and founder of the Dubin Breast Center at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York. She wrote to Epstein's probation officer stating that she's 100% comfortable with Epstein around her children, and she regularly invited him to her house, and her daughter Selena called him Uncle Jeff. Eva testified as part of the defense in Ghislaine Maxwell's trial, insisting she never witnessed any criminal behavior. Do you believe her? The next email is interesting because the Ismo email address apparently belongs to Jeffrey's brother Mark. Ismo is his t-shirt printing company. Mark asked for the name of the gynecologist that Jeffrey used to send his victims to. If he was casually chatting with his brother about his victims, that potentially makes him an accomplice. So why hasn't he been arrested? At mindspring.com. Wow, that's an old one. He literally called them victims. The email exchange with Dutch model Yvke Sturm discusses her bringing Epstein 2 girls. Sturm was a judge on Holland's Next Top Model and co-owner of the Amsterdam branch of Elite Model Management. Even if nothing illegal was intended, it would be sick to bring girls to a known sex trafficker. Sturm now says she was naive. Yeah, just a nice model from Elite Amsterdam. I would like a new toy as a present. He's so disgusting. You owe me 2 girls. Well, and then we've been hearing a lot about this UK Minister Peter Mandelson, who was appointed an ambassador to the United States by Keir Starmer, knowing that he was in the Epstein files and had dealings with Epstein. Here's further evidence that Peter Mandelson was aware of Epstein's crimes. While this stuff is not as incriminating as some of the above, it sheds further light on how close Epstein and Mandelson were, and it also shows how disturbing their relationship was. This exchange took place shortly after Epstein's release from prison for sex offenses against a minor. Mandelson asks what freedom feels like, and Epstein says she feels firm, fresh, and creamy. Mandelson replies, "Naughty boy. Are we really pretending he had no idea what was going on here?" The evidence against Mandelson goes way beyond this one email, so why was he not arrested? Here's Mandelson describing incest as exciting. Okay, that I am already her Lord President. Does that make it incest? How exciting. Gross. 2009. Here's Epstein asking Mandelson if he wants a Cuban American. Brown? Mandelson says he's desperate for a Cuban American, and while this doesn't prove wrongdoing, it does provide further insight. Given the closeness of these men, no one would be better placed to know what was going on at Epstein Island than Mandelson. So why again wasn't he brought in and deposed? All right, why are you awake? These questions are all related. Desperate for Cuban American, but can only get to New York at a time when people feel, gee, won't have some sort of breakdown. Still working on it, therefore. There are many examples of possible criminality in the Epstein files, some of which Ricky's uncovered in previous articles. The ones covered here are the examples he'd stumbled upon just in the last 24 hours. Clearly, the content of these emails should be enough to justify arrests or questioning, You don't need proof to make an arrest, just an indication of wrongdoing. And when people are discussing what appear to be serious crimes, that's enough. There seems to be no curiosity from the FBI about these conversations, and that's disturbing to say the least. What kind of investigators don't want to interrogate possible criminals? Well, like I said, I think that a lot of that is because these crimes have been taking place outside the United States. Although things that happened at Zorro Ranch or at his Palm Beach residence or in New York City certainly would fall under that jurisdiction. And we know that there were tapes that were taken. So again, support Ricky and Council of State Media. Dystopian Times is one of the sub-publications underneath that umbrella of Council of State. Yes, Topher, Cash is too busy looking for some contacts that fit. No, actually, he's too busy talking with Alexis, his honeypot Mossad girlfriend, allegedly. But they'll sue me if I say that. So it's alleged. So the Dissident has really been tracking all the releases and everything that's been uncovered as people continue to read through the emails that were released. A dump of more than 3 million documents was released about a week ago. Here's another thing that came out in the emails. Former Bannon associate alleged that he was a conduit for Epstein and Israeli influence in the White House, which I found really interesting because it was alleged that Bannon was actually anti-Semitic. But from what I was seeing here, quite the opposite. And I thought this one was really important because this is a different knowledge point that I had prior about where Steve Bannon was at and the fact that he is absolutely a Zionist and on board with Zionist agenda. So, again, this was found at the 307.substack.com. The recently released Epstein files contains a transcript of an FBI interview with Charles C. Johnson, who's a controversial right-wing blogger and former associate of Steve Bannon, who alleged that Bannon was a conduit for Epstein and the Israel lobby when he was chief White House strategist and even after his firing in 2017. According to the FBI document, which was from 2020, Johnson was, quote, friends with Bannon and they used to work together. Johnson maintained a friendship with Steve Bannon for a long time, but has since cut ties. Johnson was paid by Bannon to do research prior to the 2016 presidential election. According to Charles C. Johnson's allegations, Steve Bannon was close to the Zionist Organization of America and Zionist donor Sheldon Adelson, and would leak information to the press to further their goals in coordination with Arthur Schwartz, a Trump-connected Republican operative who is allegedly, quote, an Israeli activist and public relations expert and may be an Israeli intelligence source. I think that's unquote. I think it's almost certain that he is an Israeli intelligence source. Summarizing the Johnson interview, again, the FBI document said that Johnson said Bannon was close to the ZOA and Sheldon Adelson, who supports the group. Johnson described ZOA as sketchy, to say the least. He said Arthur Schwartz was also involved in leaks and may be connected to ZOA. He said Schwartz leaked to the New York Post and worked hand in glove with Bannon. Schwartz was close to Israeli donors and ingratiated himself to NSC staffers, Trump Jr. and Bannon. So they were trying to get to Trump by getting to all the people that are in Trump's ear. Schwartz was not a fan of POTUS during the election, but often attended events after the election. Schwartz was an Israeli activist and public relations expert and may be an Israeli intelligence source. Schwartz had friends on the NSC and often had lunch with White House interns. That's suspect. Schwartz was also known to have had ties with New York Post reporter Arthur Hinaglo. So that's what this document that was in the Epstein files said from the FBI. Giving an example of this, Johnson alleged that Bannon and Schwartz conspired to leak negative information to the press about Trump's then National Security Advisor, H.R. McMaster, because the ZOA wanted him removed due to his reservations around their desired Iran policy, presumably the withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal, the JCPOA. Okay, again, the document notes that Johnson said ZOA wanted McMaster removed as National Security Advisor with support from affiliates in the administration. Johnson said it was a concerted effort to smear and remove McMaster because of policy disagreements about Iran. That's why Pete Hegseth has to get on board with Iran, or he's going to get smeared and removed himself. But he has no problem being on board with that. Johnson told agents to look at the Rosie Gray story in The Atlantic, in which Ezra Cohen Watnick is mentioned. Johnson said that Cohen leaked to the media. He said Schwartz bragged to Johnson that Cohen provided him the information. Johnson assumed that Schwartz only talked to Cohen and Bannon because of their relationships, but Schwartz never told him those are the only two people he talked to. Okay, Johnson said that Cohen worked closely with Bannon and was fired from the NSC for leaking material. I wonder to whom. Johnson said that Schwartz got information from another NSC staffer, Josh S., who was Jewish. Zionist Jewish. Johnson also said that Emily Smith told him that the McMaster getting drunk story was made up and she got it from Schwartz. So they were planting stories in the media to be able to smear people that were opposed to their agenda. Johnson further alleged that Bannon was getting paid by Jeffrey Epstein with money from Israel and raised the possibility that Bannon even used Israeli technology to get information out of the White House, like a pager. The FBI document, again, you can see here, said pretty much that. Politico reported in 2019 that, quote, the U.S. government concluded within the past 2 years that Israel was most likely behind the placement of cell phone surveillance devices that were found near the White House and other sensitive locations around Washington, according to 3 former senior U.S. officials with knowledge of the matter. And allegedly, Bannon helped that happen or enabled that to happen in some way. Texts between Bannon and Epstein show both of them praising Israel and boasting about Bannon's Zionism. This is why I wanted to bring this article. In one text exchange from 2016, this is during the election, Epstein told Bannon, quote, the Pope is wrong on policy. You're an honorary Jew anyway. Now it's no longer Judeo-Christian, just Judeo. To which Bannon replied, I'm honored. I will drop the Christian in the Christian Zionist. There it is. So now he's just a Zionist. He no longer considers himself a Christian because the Pope was too woke for him. In another conversation, Bannon shared an article with Epstein, which presumably claimed that Israel could cure cancer. And in the following conversation, Bannon asked, is this real? And Epstein says, no. Bannon's like, damn. Why, are you planning to get some cancer? Cancer's smarter. Bannon says, Jews are smarter than cancer. Epstein says it defends itself well. Bannon says that his money's on Israel. Epstein, no worry, I'll support you afterwards. Israel's always going to have the answers. Aging, cancer, it's the Jews in the states that produce results. Bannon, whoa. Inside baseball, I get an Israeli company a day. Arabs invest. He's just said from people that absolutely were certain that they would never, ever be held accountable for anything they ever said. I wanted to bring that because Steve Bannon is absolutely a Zionist on the same side. He claims to be opposed to Trump or opposed to Israel or opposed to this, or he's on their team. He is part of the controlled opposition, if anything. All right. I also brought an interesting article from another Indie Media Award honoree who doesn't write very often, records a lot of videos, and I really like this guy, James Corbett of the Corbett Report. All right. He wrote an article, 10 Things I Learned from the Epstein Files. So one is that Epstein was an agent, right? And that he was working for who exactly? Right. Not Russia. Though all the shitlibs would love to steer you towards Russia. And Israel is trying to push that narrative. That Epstein was a Fed truther who represented the Rothschilds, according to him. All right. That someone had changed his Apple ID password after he was dead. Riddle me this, Batman. How does a dead man change his Apple ID password? Answer, who knows? But according to Jeffrey Epstein's Gmail inbox, that's exactly what happened. For those not in the know, last November, a pair of enterprising software developers created an innovative way to sort through the U.S. Department of Justice's sprawling, messy Epstein document dumps. They organized all the DOJ-supplied emails into a fake Gmail display that lets you browse through Epstein's emails as if you were a hacker logged into his account. It's called Jmail, and you can access it here. When you go there, you'll see the latest email at that time was a simple 6-word message from one Cody Rutland, who evidently made the effort to write Epstein at the disgraced blackmailer's now publicly revealed address to say, "You're dead, LOL, good riddance." The email was sent on August 13, 2019, 3 days after the Epstein character was written off the stage for good. But, as one enterprising researcher discovered, if you click the settings gear in the top of the page and say, show Yahoo emails after August 15, 2019, you'll discover an interesting email from Apple that was sent on January 14, 2021, more than a year after his death. That email indicates that someone reset Epstein's Apple ID password on that date. Interesting, to say the least. Now, perhaps that's just an FBI agent or someone working on the case. I don't know how such an investigation works and whether they would take the liberty of resetting a dead man's password, but it's fascinating nonetheless. According to another researcher, someone changed Epstein's iTunes email password earlier this week, as apparently that address was in the recently released files. No word on who did that or what they found. Stay tuned, or iTuned, as the case may be. Right? Let's get back to the table of contents here. That a fake Epstein was created with boxes and sheets to fool the media. That Epstein was a member of the Trilateral Commission. That Pizzagate was the pizza thing, the fucking pizza thing. Well, WikiLeaks and Julian Assange had actually proven that the Pizzagate thing was real. But in short, a slew of emails from the hacked email inbox of Hillary Clinton campaign chair John Podesta containing bizarre coded messages about pizza between high-ranking political figures sent researchers down a rabbit hole of depravity. Soon these researchers began to uncover a wealth of information suggesting that a politically well-connected pedophile ring was operating in and around the corridors of power in Washington, D.C. Okay. Yeah. You can't deny that a lot of these emails are very strange, and you do not make any sense in the context of actually talking about pizza. I just don't see how you can't connect it, at least in some way. Remember that these came out from WikiLeaks in 2016. We saw these in the Podesta emails. This is it coming out on the other side. Is it the April 2016 email exchange under the subject line, "The Pizza Monster," in which someone emails Epstein a picture file of some sort, prompting Jeffrey to remark, "She looks pregnant," and to which the correspondent replies, "You mean radiating a soft glow with the look of bliss and excitement? Yeah, that's the pizza." I mean, there's so much here, all right? And then on top of that, Epstein and 4chan, right? That he was a 4chan troll and plugged in. And that there was something that went down the day that he was killed. There was allegedly died, all right? And then r/politics, r/Paul, all right, was allegedly involving him. And again, read through this whole article from Corbett. There's so much to this, right? That he had co-opted Bitcoin and again made Call of Duty a microtransaction hellscape. Yeah, he did invent microtransactions. How? By asking, like, how early can we start milking kids? Okay. He enthuses over Kodak's idea of using real-world rewards as virtual prizes. He responds by saying he's all for indoctrinating kids into an economy. All right? It's presaging of microtransactions, paying real money for in-game upgrades. Then there was that Ghislaine was invited to be on the 9/11 Shadow Commission. And of course, the revelation that Epstein didn't kill himself. Oh, okay, I obviously didn't learn about Epstein's suicide or lack thereof from the latest file dump. But there is a newly released video log that contradicts what we were previously told about what happened on the night of his quote-unquote suicide. And there are those aforementioned ghoulish post-mortem pics and questions about excessive linens, on top of the fact that there was a whole situation story talked about his Fortnite account and that he had possibly achieved and won some skins that were sunset. And he also had a Rocket League account, and those had been active since his death. And once those were exposed, the accounts weren't deleted or shut down. They were just made private. All right, here's Peter Mandelson in his underwear. Yes, Britain's ex-ambassador to the U.S. had to quit the House of Lords and is now under scrutiny from police after the files confirmed a much closer relationship between the disgraced politician and the lecherous blackmailer that was previously known. Lost amid the hubbub is the fact that Mandelson, like his buddy Epstein and like Keir Starmer, who appointed him to be ambassador, despite his known links to Epstein, are also members of the Trilateral Commission. All right. Again, check out Corbett Report. CorbettReport.com. Subscribe to James, support his work. He also wrote an incredible book called Reportage, which is a lot of the articles that he had written over the years collected into an actual physical book, which I purchased and is sitting in my laptop bag whenever I'm somewhere and I'm bored and I don't have, I need a few minutes. I just have a few minutes. I will just open that book and read a couple pages. Finally, I wanted to bring from Golden Monarch, who's sitting in the chat right now, a link to the Bitcoin Women of Bitcoin Summit, which is going to be held next month. All right. And look at all these women. And interesting how there's not a mouse fart of a word from any of them about, or any of the Bitcoin maxis when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein and Bitcoin maxis. Kind of weird, huh? The silence is deafening. And what Monarch is talking about, more specifically, the Women of Bitcoin Summit bragging about how Bitcoin can feel complicated. This summit is here to change that. The Women of Bitcoin Summit is a completely free online event created to make Bitcoin education more accessible and easy to understand. But if you look a little deeper, what you find from these Epstein files is that he was heavily involved in the takeover and corporate takeover of Bitcoin and the digital prison grid that is affiliating itself with it. So I just wanted to go through some of the things that I've been finding. I don't know if what else everybody else has been seeing. There is, again, a ton out there, and we could cover this for hours and hours and hours. And I just went almost an hour on that one. So thank you for everyone for sticking with me on that. It's exhausting. It's depressing. Topher says there's other emails between Bannon and Epstein that talk about how Bannon plays the media with the narratives he wants. It's very telling how they're used. They did that for the 2016 campaign under the Mercers. Bannon was being funded by Rebecca and Robert Mercer as well. All right. Topher, if Epstein's dead, then Erica Kirk is a grieving widow. That's pretty funny. All right. Old man Barker saying that there's a cure out there, right? But anytime they find someone that makes a cure, he ends up mysteriously having some kind of an accident befallen upon him. All right. Larry Fink is Einhorn, Finkel and Einhorn, Finkel and Einhorn. That's right, Sean. Love you, brother. Good to see you. All right. Golden Monarch. BlackRock's Larry Fink says Europe's problems go way beyond Greece, and they need a whole reorganization of the banking system. Go figure. Go figure. All right. So I am still going to get to all the ICE stuff, and buckle up. We got a bunch of ICE stuff tonight. Before we get to that, support independent media because we need it more than ever. The ways to do that here are Cash App, $ Indie News Network, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, paypal.me/Indie News Network, patreon.com/Indie News Network, at indiemediatoday.com over on Substack, as well as at innnewsletter.com, and over at our self-hosted website. There's a Stripe link to keep the news free at indienewsnow.com. So please, and everybody that has contributed already is on that wall of fame. And thank you to everyone who already has. We really deeply appreciate you and can't operate without your support. Okay. Wow. Epstein invented Andrew Wilson and EA's Is the Game Good Enough game? That's interesting. I did not know that. Thank you, Golden Monarch. Good to see you. Like almost feels insulty. Sorry. What does it need to be more easy to understand because they're women? Because kind of odd. It does feel insulty. They're pandering to women because it's a whole tech bro thing. And Bitcoin in general is mostly guys, from what I found, unless they have co-opted honeypots like Bitcoin Issa and Natalie Brunel and specific people that have been brought in to be ambassadors and taken care of. Valentina Gomez is another one that they've made a ton of money themselves and been personally enriched. So they have a lot of stake in pushing this Ponzi. It's not necessarily a Ponzi. It's worse than a Ponzi. Because a Ponzi, they actually promise some kind of returns. Here, they don't promise any returns. They openly and proudly declare the risk. All right. So we're going to talk about ICE now and all the shit that ICE is up to. I'm going to start by making you mad, and I'm very sorry to do that. But this was from an account I'd never heard of, Good Morning Bad News. Masked ICE agents seized a 38-year-old chiropractor outside a preschool as he dropped off his child. The agents refused to identify themselves to witnesses, smashed in his driver's side window after he begged them to wait because there's a baby in the car, and hauled him away in handcuffs. He's married to a U.S. citizen, was waiting for his citizenship to finalize. These are people doing it the right way, following the process. ICE does not give a shit. Let's watch this horrifying minute and 59 seconds.
Good, thank you so much.
You mind if I grab your ID from you? Go ahead and roll your window all the way down.
Why? What's going on?
Go ahead and roll your window all the way down.
I have a baby in the car.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
Don't have to do anything with the baby. Just roll your window all the way down. Just go ahead and roll your window down.
Daddy
Roll your window, roll it
police.
down. Roll your window all the way down for me, please.
Yeah.
Do you have your ID on you? Police.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, can I see your ID?
Yeah, that's funny.
Where are you heading?
Daycare.
I'm sorry?
Daycare.
Okay.
Where's daycare?
Just to Beaverton.
How far?
5 minutes.
Yeah.
So there's a baby in the car. And is it hard to wait for 3 minutes?
Hey, is your phone down?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's like to put the car.
Yeah, put the car here. Yeah.
oh. You're gonna traumatize this
Put
kid.
the car over there. Yeah. Mommy's coming now.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
Hell, hold on. I'm getting out. I'm getting out.
Well, you should have done it
Hold on.
already.
Told you 3 times. Unbuckle your seatbelt.
Yeah,
Step out
but
the
you
car.
still understand.
Step out of the car.
I'm Iranian.
Yes,
I'm Iranian.
I understand.
That's why they are doing this. I'm a doctor. I'm a doctor. I'm an Iranian.
This is not okay. And no one here will identify themselves to me. They came into, you are not okay. This is not okay, and no one will identify themselves. No one here will identify.
And what happened to the kid? I would hope that the kid's mother took him into preschool at least, and that the kid would not be taken because his mother is an American citizen. Here's the original OPB article from when this arrest of Mossad was recorded last July. Daddy Police, February 7th. Next, friend of the show, Jeremy Ward, who's also on our Wall of Fame. This is also heartbreaking. No judge, no lawyer, no hearing. These monsters just deported a 5-year-old U.S. citizen, y'all. 5-year-old deported to Honduras despite being a U.S. citizen is the latest child victim of Trump's crackdown. Mother, whose visa application was pending, says she'll send the girl back to the States as soon as she's accompanied by another relative. Fuck ICE and fuck the Trump administration for this shit. The cruelty is the point. I saw this on T-Lab the other day, and I was actually, I think, flying on a plane when I first saw this video, and I was like, I need to bring this one for sure. This brave immigration attorney is blowing the whistle on ICE, saying that agents are keeping all the immigrants' money, jewelry, work visas, and any state documentation they had on them when detained. Share this widely. This is disgusting. It's also a crime to keep all of these things. All right. And by the way, Dissent in Bloom had written an article about how people weren't getting their stuff back after being detained like months ago. This is not something that's new, but I still wanted to document it.
Well,
What's happening here today?
Just basically, it's total chaos. It's total chaos. I'm an immigration attorney, and the people who are being detained are being denied access to their lawyers. We used to prepare people for times like this, and we said, memorize our numbers so you can call us. They don't even get phone calls. Half the time, people can't even determine where their loved one is. And they're sending most people to Camp East Montana in El Paso, Fort Bliss. It's disgusting. Multiple people have died there. And they're sending everybody now who's apprehended, they're sending them to Camp East Montana.
Right.
And then what does that mean for their chances of getting out? And this is a habeas petition that was granted. And they can't find the woman. That is the trouble. That is the trouble. They don't know where she is.
Right. And I've also heard reports of detainees being released without their cell phones and without...
That is a big problem, too. And then a lot of people earn money in cash, and they're carrying large sums of money. And when they get detained, who gets that money?
Right. And their IDs have gone missing from what I've heard as well.
When they release people, they won't give back their work permit or their social.
That's what I'm hearing as well.
And do you know how hard it is to replace a work permit? Months.
Yep.
Yeah. So that this operation is illegal on so many levels that it's hard to fathom. And the people who claim to be lawyers who are working for them, they have to quit their jobs. And that's why you've seen multiple people. A law clerk at the immigration court left because she can't handle it anymore. You have to keep your ethics at the center of what you do all the time. That's really all I have to say.
Absolutely.
And these people are operating with no moral center. They have a hatred toward other people. And that's why they can so easily kill Renee. Did you see when that happened? Bop, bop, bop. She got killed. He didn't care, and then he called her a fucking bitch.
No accountability. No
accountability.
No accountability.
Not only that, but he's being protected. And that is what is happening right now. We are losing the rule of law. We are losing the rule of law. And there's a fight going on with the federal judges here in Minnesota because they are not open to that. They do not want the rule of law to be eviscerated.
Yeah.
So look into
Thank
that
you so
issue.
much.
Judge Schlitz is fighting with the Trump administration
Judge
right
Schlitz.
now. Look up his order.
Thank you so much for your time.
It's crazy. And once you get thrown into that system, it's nightmarish. You don't know where your relative is going to go. You don't know when they're going to get out, if they are. They're being treated horribly, malnourished, underfed, left in horrible conditions, losing the rule of law. Yeah, we did have a rule of law. Like, you could not just be picked up by cops, by anyone, and disappeared for months into a hole. All right, that's what they're doing. They're disappearing people with no right to a speedy trial, no right to anything, because their buddies at Core Civic and Geo Group and all of the other profitable commercial industries supporting this private prison industry are making hand over fist profits from this. So they all have incentive to continue to lock more and more people up. Speaking of dissent and bloom, this is also part of ICE, the $159 million black box. Why the government is ignoring laws for, go figure, Peter Thiel. A private monopoly has been building the system of federal surveillance for over a decade, from your Medicaid records to your grocery runs. See how the government is using your data. All right. And this has got to do with Palantir and ICE. The relationship between DHS, ICE, and Palantir did not begin in 2025. It began in 2011, when Palantir embedded itself within Homeland Security investigations, supplying DHS with tools to track flights, scan driver's license data, and map human movement through cell phone records. This was well before data mining even had a name, and decades before the public understood their private lives were being fused into searchable systems. And even now, for many, that understanding has never really arrived. They still don't understand the magnitude of just how deep this goes. In 2014, ICE first contracted with Palantir Technologies. This contract gave them $41 million to build ICE an investigative case management system. That decision cemented what is now a 15-year relationship, one that has survived multiple presidencies and has been alive nearly long enough to vote. In 2025, ICE had extended partnerships with a $159 million contract to use Palantir's modernization to ICM called Immigration OS. And in the name of modernization, docs released last month will reveal that the agency treated government bidding requirements as optional and declared Palantir the only viable option. This despite another company, Caseware with a K, who met the requirements and wanted the contract and wanted to bid against Palantir for it. Caseware went as far as filing a complaint with the General Accounting Office about Palantir being awarded this contract, but it was dismissed because Trump and Thiel and Vance, they all wanted it to happen. And so DHS handed Palantir another 5 years of control. And it is so important to understand that what that control actually means. ICM is the central nervous system of ICE operations. It's the architecture that analyzes, connects, and feeds the data powering DHS's totalitarianism that's bleeding into our communities. ICM knows the shape of your face better than your own mother did. It knows where you buy groceries, where you drove your car, where you work and pay taxes, and even who you call at night. And it doesn't just watch, it predicts, allowing the government to calculate confidence scores of where you are at any given time. This is pre-crime. It uses emergency Medicaid data, the same data that AG Pam Bondi is attempting to extort out of Minnesota. Emergency insurance used to save lives is now used to hunt families. It creates networks of you know who, of who know you, and then who they know. Oh, I'm sorry. It creates networks of who you know, and then who they know. ICE and Palantir have stripped you bare without ever touching you. We're not people to them. We were just puzzles that they had already solved. After 15 years of a relationship, again, going back to 2011, the question becomes unavoidable. Was this monopoly of the surveillance state given to them because of loyalty to Palantir? Or does Homeland Security fear what might be exposed if another company saw their records? I would say it's both. And remember that Palantir grew out of CIA origins and DARPA origins. The two-way mirror of immigration enforcement. What we are living under now is a corporate-style hybrid. One where the government and the ultra-wealthy know everything about you, but want you to know nothing about them. While ICE uses Palantir to power Immigration OS, the system is still owned, operated, and maintained by a private corporation not subject to FOIA laws. And since the public can't look inside, there's no way to know if the software is operating legally or ethically. It creates a black box where government decisions that lead to life or death are made by a private system that no one is allowed to inspect. By design. They can see you, but you aren't allowed to see them. And again, let me hash back to Whitney Webb's article from summer of 2024 that I read on How Did We Miss That?, where she talked about John Poindexter introducing this through DARPA and the government oversight committee determining that this would be better run outside of the oversight of government because they would be able to do things that the government would not be okay with. So, this means that if a lawyer or journalist asked, how did this computer decide my client was a risk? Or is the algorithm biased against this specific nationality? The government can legally refuse to answer. They can claim they don't own the software, they just license it. And disclosing how it works would hurt Palantir's business. That's exactly, by the way, how our voting machines work, and she may talk about that here. Oh, hey, how about that? It's a lot like the way the company that certifies America's voting machines operates, since it's also a private business. They love having that disconnect. We have to confront an uncomfortable truth. Palantir was founded by Peter Thiel. This is someone who does not believe in freedom and democracy are compatible. This is the same person who bankrolled and shaped J.D. Vance's political career before placing him in the graces of Trump himself, setting him up to take over after Poopy Pants departs this mortal coil. When a company rooted in that ideology controls the infrastructure of federal surveillance, the risk is not hypothetical. The system itself becomes vulnerable to ideological and political manipulation. Palantir is Skynet. This is why it's not just ICE showing up in the streets of America, but Homeland Security investigations and CBP as well. When Trump declared a border emergency within 100 miles of a border, CBP was suddenly authorized to operate deep inside the country. A legal fiction meant for ports of entry, okay, became a domestic deployment order. That same logic was later applied in Minnesota when a child that they call a journalist, or a man named Nick Shirley, a manufactured journalist, who appeared out of nowhere, revived years-old allegations of nationwide daycare fraud in Somali populations. He wasn't exactly out of nowhere. I did a whole article documenting that for 2 years, Laura Ingraham has been grooming this kid and bringing him along in order to try to justify him and give him independent credibility. He's a provocateur. It's worth noting that the individual responsible for the entire endeavor was, in fact, a white woman named Amy Bach. You know, that's inconvenient. But that didn't matter. Homeland Security had a publicized justification for sending thousands of agents to Minnesota under Operation Metro Surge because of Shirley's reporting, allegedly. I don't think it was because of Shirley. DHS knows that there's no nationwide plot, including in Ohio, of Somali people conspiring across state lines and borders to commit daycare fraud. Again, there's less than 250,000. There's about 250,000 Somalis in the entire country. They needed you to believe that there was a reason to justify Homeland Security's involvement. Homeland Security is like the FBI, but focused on crimes that cross the border of the United States. In all truth, DHS committed fraud themselves in order to find fraud in Minnesota. Minnesota! Even though Tom Homan announced today that 700 agents are withdrawing from Minnesota, it's worth remembering that just days earlier, Pam Bondi, Attorney General for the United States, shared photos on her Twitter showing Americans standing alongside Homeland Security agents. It was an effort to paint dissent as foreign conspiracy and legitimize violence. It was also another person in Trump's circle committing acts of stochastic terrorism. She was painting a target on their backs, plain and simple. Judge Dulcie J. Foster scolded Bondi for posting protesters' faces, but the damage is already done. But it was an attempt to create the visual that protesters are part of an international conspiracy too. They're not. A manufactured connection was enough to transform a local issue into a federal operation and once again expand the reach of agencies that were never meant to police everyday life in the United States. All these bootlicking bag of chuds are like, yeah, get him! It's pathetic and embarrassing. And if it were, it's totally team sports related, because if Biden were doing it, they'd be wringing their hands. It's un-American. It's just that the people who are getting arrested are people that they've been told to not like. So therefore, they're cheering it on. Pure team sports. It's pathetic. Trapped in Palantir's invisible net is all of us. Palantir is the invisible net that fuses all the alphabet agencies from CIA, NSA, DOJ, FBI, DOW, not DOD, but DOW, that's Department of War, to DHS, the Homeland Security, along with corporate tracking, social media, and facial recognition grids, so that nearly every camera and credit card swipe feeds into one single system, Skynet. Hell, in 2026, Palantir tools are even embedded in civilian agencies like Health and Grants Administration, where they've been told to flag any contracts that are DEI to be revoked. The company began as a tool built for the CIA, designed to help intelligence analysts connect fragments of information after 9/11 to find patterns that humans might miss. Year after year, that mandate expanded. Each expansion justified the next. More data, more sources, more access, more. In true Orwellian fashion, CEO of Palantir, Alex Karp, who's a lunatic muppet, declared that the government having access to all this data is actually good for privacy. but not his. Of course, his windows are boarded up. He states that nobody could go off mission without leaving a footprint, so they'll be held accountable. And we're just supposed to sit here and believe that the government, who's declared that the executions of Alex Preddy and Renee Good were justified, that they're just going to police themselves, just like the Israeli government does, right? We're supposed to trust that the watchers are going to be kept in check by a logbook that's locked away we can never see? In March of 2025, Trump signed Executive Order 14243 titled Stopping Waste, Fraud, and Abuse by Eliminating Information Silos, an order that erased any remaining boundaries between the most intimate records of American life. It forced federal agencies to share data without restraint and extends that demand to state programs and the private companies that manage Medicaid, unemployment systems, schools, housing assistance, food aid, and medical records. Diagnoses, prescriptions, biometric scans, income histories, disability accommodations, eviction risks, and family structures can now be accessed at the direction of political appointees, stitched together into a single centralized view of who you are and how you survive. If you've ever needed help from a public system, your digital shadow has grown. Every day, you wake up in a world where the government doesn't need to spy on you because you do the work for them. Every time you accept cookies or let an app track your location, you feed a massive commercial system. Companies use Palantir software to build a digital twin of your life to track your shopping and travel habits. They claim this is just to sell you products, but it actually creates a perfect map of who you are and where you go. The terrifying truth is that the government doesn't need a warrant to see this map. They just need a credit card. Agencies like ICE and the Pentagon can simply buy this data from brokers and feed it directly into their own Palantir-run systems. And suddenly, the profile built to sell you shoes is used to track your movements. The wall between being a shopper and a suspect disappears instantly. You're not being watched by a spy in the shadows. You're being watched by the data you gave away for convenience. In 2024, a bill was introduced called the Fourth Amendment is Not for Sale app to stop them from doing this. It passed the House, and when it got to the Senate, they left it dead on arrival. The official excuse for killing the bill was a terrifying logic loop. Congress argued that because this data is commercially available to anyone with a credit card, including Chinese intelligence, Russian oligarchs, and drug cartels, it would be a unilateral disarmament for the U.S. government to stop buying it. In other words, because your data is already for sale in the open market to foreign enemies, the FBI and Pentagon claim they must be allowed to buy it too. We didn't stumble into the surveillance state. We were walked into it step by step for 15 years. What started as a contract for flight logs has metastasized into an operating system for human control, one that treats the Fourth Amendment like a glitch to be patched out. If they don't need to kick down your door to know you anymore. They just buy the digital exhaust that you leave behind every time you swipe a card or touch a screen. The government has outsourced the eyes of the state to a private monopoly, creating a machine that strips you naked without ever touching you. We aren't humans in this system. We're just data waiting for an algorithm to decide if we're a threat, while people holding the mouse are the only ones we're not allowed to see. Descent in Bloom is a subscriber to this channel and an outstanding writer who, congratulations to her, just passed 500 paid subscribers to her publication. So by all means, she's fully independent, totally user supported. Go over and subscribe. DescentInBloom.substack.com, $5 a month, or you can pick up an annual subscription over there as well. She's also a co-host of the show Pilled, if you did not know. So that's beyond frightening. This is why ICE is able to now scan your face and know everything about you within seconds because Palantir's feeding it to them. I brought a couple from Aaron Reichland Melnick, who has become a lawyer that I depend on heavily for opinions about what's going on with ICE and stories about horrifying situations legally that are happening. And he often shares this guy, Kyle Cheney, who I'm not a big fan of, but he is, who writes for Politico. All right, it's not just Minnesota. Judges across the country are calling out ICE for violating court orders with regularity. ICE is arresting and detaining people faster than their infrastructure can keep up. Overwhelming systems. People just disappear into detention for days at a time, and courts' release orders go ignored because there are so many of them that ICE can't even keep up. It's a nightmare. And nobody holds them accountable outside of these judges, who they then drag their feet to respond to. But worse, more from Kyle Cheney, a Fifth Circuit panel has backed ICE's mass detention policy, a decision that clears the way for the admin to lock up thousands of people who are in immigration proceedings. A 2-to-1 ruling, all right? Both Republican appointees were the majority. The minority was a Democratic appointee. And what Aaron says here is that this is awful news for due process. This decision will wipe out the availability of release through bond for tens of thousands of people detained or transported to Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi by ICE. This is why they were bringing them to those three states. This decision overturns 30 years of interpretation of law passed in 1996. Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi are already detention black holes. Release will be more difficult than ever. As more people are locked up, ICE will increase the pressure on those who are detained to give up. The goal is an assembly line of coercion with no day in court. Coercion meaning self-deportation. But even the people who are trying to self-deport, they end up having a ton of problems themselves. This decision, again, puts even more pressure on plaintiffs and district courts outside the Fifth Circuit. Unless the habeas is filed before a person is transferred to the Fifth Circuit, a person may remain locked in appalling conditions, never allowed to ask for bond. Fucking horrible. Fuck ICE. And I got more. This is from In These Times, which has gone a little liberal, but I thought this one was actually a good article. ICE cold cash, private prison companies, and the executives that have donated millions to members of Congress. So, what they have done, all right, leading for-profit prison companies donated about $500,000 to Republican members of Congress currently in office and $57,000 to Democratic Congress members from 2021 through 25. Again, this is just the executives that have done this. Executives of these firms have also donated millions to candidates, political parties, and PACs. More than 70,000 people are currently being detained by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and the majority of them are being incarcerated in private prisons. Of the 38 people who have died while in ICE custody from 2025 through February 1st, 71% were held in for-profit facilities. The appeal has compiled information on every sitting member of Congress who's received donations from two of the largest private prison companies that contract with ICE, CoreCivic and Geo Group, along with the smallest management and training corporation, smaller one. All right. The appeal reviewed hundreds of records published by Open Secrets and the Federal Election Commission and is publishing the results of the investigation in a searchable database. And that's why I wanted to bring this. This is actually a searchable database that you can now get into and see yourself which members of Congress they were donating to and how much. Where is it here? Yeah, The appeals investigation revealed that Democratic Representatives Sanford Bishop and Henry Cuellar each received a total of $21,000 in donations from private prison companies, more than any sitting member of Congress. Remember that Trump gave Cuellar a pardon, a Democratic member of Congress. But there's rumors that he's going to flip and run as a Republican in 2026. I don't know what he's going to do. Oh, wow, we got a super chat. Hey, our first super chat. Since we're back monetized, you can now leave one. Thanks for leaving $30 for, well, thank you really, though, for the super chat. Last year, I bought a Ring camera for my door. I got spooked into buying one because of package theft, and I was about to be robbed at gunpoint. I guess it's too late to put duct tape over the lens. No, I would say to disconnect that shit immediately. Ring has now contracted with Flock. I don't know if you saw the Super Bowl commercial. They're basically under the guise of being able to find your pet. They're now going to tap into every Ring camera and use that for the surveillance state. What a mess. All right. Denver, these motherfucking steaks on this motherfucking plane. That's right. All right. 2 other Democrats received donations from private prison companies, Benny Thompson of Mississippi and Jeanne Shaheen of New Hampshire. I believe that Jeanne Shaheen may be retiring. I was pretty sure that Debbie Wasserman Schultz, also was getting paid off. Maybe that was the Payday Lending Association, not the private prison industry. Sorry. All right. Under Trump, Congress has passed legislation to dramatically expand immigration detention and fund ICE at unprecedented levels, much to the delight of private prison executives. Their stock's been going crazy. This is truly one of my most exciting periods in my career with the company. Disgraceful. I don't want to make private prison companies great again. That's what they're doing. So, yeah, where's the link at the appeal? Where is it? Published at the appeal. Hold on. I want to find the database itself. This is the article published over there. Being detained. Management Training Corporation. I had this. I actually did see the. Here's the list. All right. So again, this is a searchable database, 20 pages long, where you can see how much they got, and the most that they gave to anyone was Bill Haggerty in Tennessee from Core Civic in 2026. $12,500. These guys work cheap. It doesn't even take much. But again, that's just the direct campaign contributions, let alone the super PAC money that they donated to and what their executives had donated to. Yes, cheap is right. But this is just one piece of the puzzle. Now, I also wanted to close this segment about Fuck ICE with a happy story from our brother and Indie Media Award honoree, Pasta Jardula. Pasta went up to Minnesota in the freezing cold to do some reporting and talk to the people face to face. Love this guy. All right. So he wrote this article through Sovereign Media, The Free Cafe Fueling Minneapolis's Resistance. The Modern Times Cafe sits just blocks from where George Floyd, Renee Good, and Alex Preddy were killed in a Minneapolis neighborhood that's become a national symbol of the state violence and protest. So let me play this, and I believe this is a script filmed by Craig Jardula for Sovereign Media. So again, shout out to Craig.
It's just blocks. Modern Times has been a hub for Minneapolis through many national events. It's just blocks away from the sites of several high-profile incidents over the past few years, including the deaths of George Floyd, Renee Good, and Alex Preddy. Owner Dylan Alverson says the idea is simple. By operating on donations and not generating sales tax, the cafe won't be contributing to what he calls the armed occupation of the city. Alverson says it's a reflection of the city and the country that, in his words, is in chaos and local business must adapt.
People are hiding, people are living under trauma, people can't afford to eat at restaurants even before this, and it was something that I wanted to provide for anyone in the city right now, whether their economic status or, I guess, time management, people out patrolling blocks and helping their neighbors and all these things. People forget to eat. I forget to eat.
Now, look at this pie over here. Look how big this is. This is like you get this at Grandma's house. This is beautiful. I'm going to take a bite of this. It's focaccia style. You got like a sweet tomato sauce. I can say, you using San Marzano tomatoes over here? Yes. What kind of cheese? Is this grande mozzarella or no?
This is actually a local provolone.
I love provolone. It's sharper. This is my style. I'm going to be hanging
We literally
out
call pasta kid provolone.
So why did you
it's
decide
great.
to exclude federal agents from the free menu?
They're perpetrating violence on our community. They're killing our neighbors, our customers, our friends. I've witnessed firsthand their brutality. I've been tear gassed several times last week. My wife was shot in the face with a pepper ball standing on Nicollet Avenue. I guess if there's anyone in this neighborhood that we hear about that's committing crimes against people or terrorizing people, I'm not going to serve them.
Regular patrons said they're inspired by the new approach, with some already leaving donations on Venmo or in person, showing solidarity with the restaurant and the community.
They are very clear about not accepting ICE in this cafe, and that in itself is political. I think it's a community effort because they're offering free food when they do not have to. And there was no guarantee that they were going to make that money back throughout donations, but not only are they in some way relying on their community, they put a lot of faith in their community, and they're putting a lot of love out there.
Just the amount of love and support we've received over the last couple of days has been quite amazing. Like, I'm getting DMs from people over in like Paris, France, that are doing like a pop-up for us. Like, they're donating like all of their proceeds from the entire night to us, and it's like, that's like amazing.
For now, Postmodern Times is open daily from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., hoping to make a statement about community, safety, and resistance in a town that has become the epicenter for all the protests nationally.
Shout out to my brother Pasta and to Sovereign Media for supporting his reporting. Sovereign Media, by the way, is an outlet that is comprised of, it is a group network of Vox Uma and Progressive International and the Orinoco Tribune and Black Agenda Report with Margaret Kimberly, Indie Media Award honoree, Causation News. They're all part of this collective now called Sovereign Media. They've all agreed to kind of pool their resources similar to the way that INN does, but they're already large established outlets. So I give them a lot of credit. And again, I appreciate them supporting my brother Pasta's reporting and journalism in Minnesota. All right. I know I'm running long. Thank you, everyone. Support independent media because we need it more than ever. The ways to do that are Cash App, $ Indie News Network. Thank you so much again to Virtuoso for the super chat tonight. That's our first super chat in more than 2 years on this channel because we had been demonetized by YouTube, but they saw fit to remonetize our channel this week. So very, very cool. And thank you for that. ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, ko-fi.com. Okay. And then we got paypal.me/Indie News Network and patreon.com/Indie News Network. And then we've got INNnewsletter.com. That's our weekly newsletter for the network. IndieMediaToday.com is my Substack, where you'll get clips for this show. You'll get live stream alerts. You'll get the replay from this live stream ad-free. You'll get articles from me. You'll get appearances. You'll get stuff that I share, as well as the weekly update. I then share that out to Indie Media Today on Saturdays. And you'll get all of that for free. Of course, for free, as Steve Poikinen likes to say. Shout out to baby Steve. And then IndieNewsNow.com. Remember, the show's called Indie News Now. We have a website called IndieNewsNow.com where you can read independent news, not just see this show, but get all articles from over 100 different sources. Okay. All right. I know I'm running long, everyone. Thank you, Virtuoso. Thank you. I still got more. Not much, but we're going to go to a lightning round. Lightning round. All right. This one is going to be a quick one. I'm just going to go through some headlines. I'm a big supporter of Sludge. I've been a paid subscriber of theirs for a couple of years now, $5 a month. Readsludge.com. They follow the money. David Moore and Donnie. have been publishing, just the two of them by themselves for years, nonprofit. So they wrote an article called Crypto, AI, and AIPAC are set up to smash super PAC spending records. So if you thought 2024 was big, just wait till the midterms, according to new disclosures. So read this one for sure. Here you've got 191 million for Fair Shake. That's the crypto PAC. You've got that 95 million for AIPAC, which I mentioned earlier. And the new AI industry super PAC, Leading the Future, has 50 million cash on hand. And again, this is to spend not in a presidential election, but in a fucking midterm. Imagine what 2028 is going to look like. That's wow. Stunning. So again, readsludge.com. I believe this is a paid supporter article, but you can unlock a week worth for free if you go to the site. And for $5 a month, I support their independent media 100%. This one I found really interesting. You know, a lot of times we've talked about 6 companies that control what we see, read, hear, and think with regard to media ownership, but that's not really the case. All right, Denver Attaway, R.I.P. Glenn Ford over at Black Agenda Report. Totally agree there, dude. Amen. Black Agenda. So Glenn Ford was one of the co-founders of Black Agenda Report. He died in 2021, and Margaret Kimberly took over. Anyway, this is more an article that lays out when it comes to online. It's not really 6 companies. It's more like 25. So what this does is this charts out just who these companies are. Caitlin Scialla over at FAIR, which is Fairness and Accountability in Reporting. Okay. She wrote this article a week ago, The Digital Media Oligarchy, Who Owns Online News? And this is a chart that you can click on and view the entire list. All right. But this lays out the top 25 online properties and who owns them. I don't know why this is a short version, but they list the Oaks-Sulzberger family with the New York Times as the number 1 online media company based upon annual visits in millions. Fox, Warner Brothers, Apollo Global Management, that's a hedge fund that owns Yahoo Finance and Yahoo News. All right, and what outlets they're using. The Daily Beast, I was not surprised to see, what's his name, Daily Caller up there, and Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro's outlet. And somewhere, Warner Brothers Discovery, which is now being acquired by Skydance, so that's now going to get merged. Apollo Global Management, Comcast, 2.4 billion views, Microsoft. So this is, again, a very interesting article and list. Here's the chart. Here's the full chart. So this is where you get the top 25, right down to Breitbart. Wow, that's slow. Okay, here we go. Oh, look at that. Shit. It would help if I did that. There you go. Now you can see it better. You were just looking at my document. Microsoft Corporation, IAC, New Media Investment Corp that owns the USA Today. That's Gannett. Alphabet owns Google News. Axel Springer that owns Business Insider and Politico. So you can see which corporation, which media companies are affiliated with multiple publications. So again, it's not really 6, it's really 25 companies that control see and hear. Look, Disney's ranked 21 with ABC. But that doesn't count Disney Plus. That doesn't count the apps. Right? This is just online news. Interesting set. So, another thing I wanted to bring from Descent in Bloom, this is a quick visual that she created about a quick lesson on astroturfing and botnet farms. Because I think a lot of people kind of get fooled by thinking, well, this has a lot of likes, or this has a lot of activity, and it doesn't really make much sense. So she lays this out, Astroturfing is basically fake popularity. It's like a business owner paying strangers to pretend that they're happy customers who left good reviews. Political pundits do this to create the illusion that public opinion is on their side, even when it's not. The goal is tricking you. Sometimes it's used to make you think that something is or someone is popular. But it's also used for fear, meaning that they flood your feeds with scary but fake information to make you panic. Or infiltration, they pretend to be one of us to sneak into groups. Or infighting, once inside, they start nasty arguments to turn friends into enemies and destroy movements. Okay, what's a sock account? A sock account is a digital disguise. One person creates a second or even third account just to talk to themselves or to others. Elon Musk famously created multiple sock accounts. They pretend that they're someone else. And then there's the BotNet, one brain, many bodies. It's a group of computers that have been secretly infected or set up to participate. One person holds the remote control. They push a button and 50,000 different devices and accounts like a post, making it trend instantly. So how do I know who is real and who is a bot or fake account? It's probably fake if, and she gives 4 different criteria. 1, you see the exact same phrase or point repeated by dozens of different accounts. If you suspect a comment is fake, copy the text and search for it on Twitter, Instagram, or Google. If you see 50 other people saying the exact same thing, it's astroturfing. When political crisis happens, bot farms often create or awaken thousands of accounts instantly to flood the conversation. They post on their own, share, like, and even comment on your posts. If you can, check where an account is from, when it was created, and look at its other activity. These accounts often have usernames like name12345, like Joe Schmo or Joe 95959. And you can also look at their total tweets and the number of tweets that they've actually sent and what they've said. Sometimes they've never tweeted at all, and they're literally just there to troll comments. Number 3, real people do have hobbies. They post about their dog, about sports, or food and politics. AstroTurf accounts are only 100% often focused on one specific task or job or topic. And number 4, real news spreads gradually. AstroTurfing hits all at once to force something to trend. All right. So that is how to spot a botnet and a little bit about AstroTurfing and botnet farms. And finally, not such great news. Free Palestine TV, we've covered a couple of their articles. They're over at Substack. Their Gmail got hacked and their channel seemed to be deleted. Please help. They've gotten nothing. But worse, they cried out recently for help from the community just 2 days ago, and I have not seen much response. It's mind-boggling that to date, not one of the big indie media producers on Palestine, like the Electronic Intifada and Indie Media Award honoree, wrote anything in defense of Free Palestine TV, as we suffered a Mossad-directed hacking operation originating from Italy to take down our YouTube channel. They didn't even take the simple action of retweeting the post below. The attack came after Free Palestine TV aired multiple groundbreaking documentaries on the historic relations between fascist and Zionist movements in Greece and Italy, and filmed field reports from the gates of weapons factories in those countries who were involved in the genocide of Gaza. Why the silence? It's disturbing that the community has not stood up for these people. So if you're able to, and on YouTube or on Twitter, tag YouTube and call this to light. This sucks. I don't like seeing anyone censored. Now, luckily, they are not censored on Substack, but this is similar to the David Rovich article that I read a couple of weeks ago and just shared recently on YouTube, that this is where videos are recommended. This is where a lot of people do watch their content. So not being here is erasure. And it is censorship. And it is disgusting. And we don't support it. And we support Free Palestine TV and their ability to publish. So let's hope they get restored to their YouTube channel. Okay, everyone. That's the lightning round. Covered 4 stories that weren't necessarily ICE, Israel, or Epstein related. So real quick, support independent media because we need it more than ever. The ways to do that are on that board. Cash App, Ko-fi, PayPal, Patreon, website over at IndieNewsNow.com and at the Substacks INN newsletter and IndieMediaToday.com. I do have a couple of GoFundMes and not much as far as an update is concerned, but I did want to remind people that our friend Shanda is battling round 3 of what started out as small cell lung cancer, and it has expanded. It's now expanded to her left eye, and we're hoping that it can be saved. She's undergoing experimental treatments right now at Fred Hutch, staying with our friend Amber King, still having to maintain her place at home. She misses home. She posted a picture up to Facebook the other day. She said it's us that's keeping her going. She loves us all. We love you too, Shanda, and we're pulling for you, and fuck cancer. We heard from our friend Anthony Malecki earlier in the show, Cowboy Kitty. His sister-in-law is a working mother who was taken by ICE and is still in prison pending deportation to Ukraine. She's here on asylum. She has a letter of asylum. She should not be sent back. This is disgraceful. But she's still sitting in an ICE detention facility, and her daughter could use some bucks, and she could too. I know that he's taken some of the money and to use it already, but certainly not many donations have been coming in. It's been a while, and if anyone can do anything to support, it would really help. Again, all these links will be in the Substack description afterwards. Finally, I want to call attention to, we've been talking about this for months and the situation hasn't changed, justice for Aspen. You go to linktr.ee/the justice and the number 4 Aspen. Aspen was arrested along with somebody in an RV where she was a passenger and was unaware that the person was carrying enough drugs that he could be charged with federal trafficking. And she too, because she was in the vehicle, is also being charged with trafficking and facing decades in prison. So we need to help raise money for her defense, for investigators, and for a lawyer. So anything, we did a fundraiser in October. We're probably going to be looking at doing another one in the springtime. I have not gotten together with anyone to talk about that yet. I'm just thinking out loud, but it might be time to ring the bell again and see if we can get more people out. If you remember, Descent and Bloom wrote an outstanding article about what happened to Aspen and about the Georgia prison system in general and just what a nightmare it would be for her. So anything we can do to help her, I would really appreciate. Thank you. And this, again, is her GoFundMe that had just reached the 12,500 mark and really hasn't gone much beyond that. So anything that you can do, we really appreciate. Finally, I've been mentioning IndieNewsNow.com all night. This is what it looks like right now. I'll give it a quick refresh because it is constantly rolling 24/7 with new content, new articles, and new videos. I also added this week the ability to view articles and videos by day. It will show the, I believe, 12 articles from any specific day. I don't know if the infinite scroll is working for this page yet. I got to tweak it. But we also have the Watch Live, and I wanted to mention the merch store. So our merch store, you can pick up some hoodies, relatively inexpensive. Get my little indie avatar guy over there on a hoodie, or you get Cats or Dicks, or INN8DOCHO, or We Deserve Better PsyOps, or pick up an Indie Media Today or an Indie News Now hoodie. Check those out for $30. I mean, Where are you getting hoodies like that? And they're comfortable, they're soft, they're good. Everyone that has one loves it. I saw Fred Edward got his t-shirt this week in the mail about that when people are occupied. This one, resistance is justified. He got a black t-shirt that had that on there. So shout out to our buddy Fred Edward for picking up the merch at the merch store. And I think that's it. Thank you, everyone. I know I went super long tonight. Wow, almost 3 hours. Holy crap. Thank you for sticking with me. There was a lot in those 2 weeks, and I appreciate everybody hanging out. And fuck Israel, fuck ICE, fuck Trump, and support independent media because we need it more than ever. I love you all, and we will see you next week. I promise I'll be back. No! We just fucking lost the stream!
I think I liked it better being blind, when I couldn't read between the lines, and when I couldn't see the cracks in the structure that lay bare before me the whole time. I think I liked it better back when I suspended disbelief and swallowed pride. I thought I knew the difference in the red from the blue, but they both bleed us so dry. They both bleed us so dry.
My favorite songs don't hit the same way. I get to the end of a 4-minute track and I'm only looking back thinking, what did they actually say? So
I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days, and I still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to make, but God, it's so hard to say. And when they told you everything was safe, were you safe? Were you safe?
wait, turns out I have something else to say. But words have let us all down. We are in the waste now. If we choose to lay down, let them bring our wage down. Nancy, won't you face down, pray? If you find resilience in your faith, it's on all of us to lead the way. It takes all of us to lift the weight. We were told it's normal and required that we suffocate. Wait, I will not be carried to my grave in perfect health and perfectly awake. The earth is not the sweetest of escapes, but the surface is the merciless and purpose-sicken place. Don't stay. Tell him that he doesn't have to stay. Hold his hand and let him slip away. There is nothing here that's worth the wait. Nothing good is waiting in the wings. Don't stay. Oh, don't stay. Don't stay. It's just frozen in time. Frozen in time. Only so much shot through the eyes. Shot through the eyes. Oh,
let you go, set you free, or send you home. Wait, please say you know what you need is what you owed, and they won't let you go, set you free, send you home.
I was close enough to smell the fire. Jesus took the wheel and then he kicked me off the ride. I was busy shouting at myself from in the crowd, about to throw down and drag myself outside. I had to give myself the business. When I show myself forgiveness, it goes right between the eyes. Was looking past my shoulder, never focused on the prize. I stalked myself through burning sand the better part of 40 nights. I found myself staring in the mirror, yelling, go into the light. Cause I was in the rear view, staring at the highway, horrified. I was in the road ahead, arms wide, ready to be mummified. Gonna be the fella yelling how he's sick of always betting on his life. I'll also be the guy that brought the dice. Half a dozen chambers and I keep an empty 5. Only needed one to break the ice. Only needed one to clear my mind. Only needed one to stop time.
Wait, please say you know what you need is what you owed, and then